right time. Jesus died for the ungodly. At the right time. That's who you are. At the right time you show up. It's not always when we want you to necessarily or the way we want you to, but you're always there for us. And that's what we ask tonight, that you be in this place, that your love, your grace, your mercy, your kindness, your patience, whatever is necessary to be present in this room. We thank you for all the citizens that are gathered here tonight that show a concern and a love for our community in which we live. We thank you for the elected leaders that lead this meeting and have to make so many important decisions. Father, we just pray for your wisdom. We pray for clarity. We pray for discernment and all the good things that come from you. Thank you for letting us be a part of this great nation and for the freedom you have given us. We just thank you for all that you've done for us. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. So now Bishop Sella was originally supposed to do it, and now he's here. Would you like to do an invocation too, sir? All right. So we have a proclamation for September is National Children's Cancer Awareness Month, so I'm going to ask the board to step down front. And ladies and gentlemen, if you come up.
All the way around? No, come on over here.
Come on right here.
Yeah.
You guys are from the Christina Rena Foundation, and you're dedicated to supporting childhood cancer research and furthering the awareness of childhood cancer. I can't even, who would like to speak on behalf of the organization?
I would, I appreciate it. We started this program, my daughter passed away in 2007, she was 16 years old, and we felt we couldn't just let her memory go. So we started a foundation, and we're all about childhood cancer awareness. We're working with Colston Harbor Laboratory to start a research there for rhabdomyosin sarcoma, which is the cancer she had. And we started an awareness program, and we've gone from, we just came from Mineola, so we've put bows from Nassau County all the way out to Suffolk, and we do appreciate you guys being part of that. And we're also doing a gold shoelace program where we're distributing shoelaces to all the sports teams in the high schools. We're asking the teams to wear them for the fall. So I brought everybody a gold shoelace. They really stand out if you don't wear them.
I don't know, can I get them on my cowboy boots?
I don't know if you get them on your cowboy boots, but I did bring these for everybody here, and I do appreciate you guys being part of the program. It does mean a lot. And actually, on the 20th, we're going to the White House to meet with the president. So we're quite excited about that.
Well, on behalf of myself and the town board, we do declare that September is the month to recognize children's cancer. So September in Riverhead is the Children Cancer Awareness Month, and I'm so sorry for your loss.
Thank you.
May God be with you and your family.
Thank you. We truly do appreciate you guys. All of you have. Thank you. Just getting the word
That
out.
was it only. One of you guys wanted to speak?
Yes. This is my board. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it. And I'm definitely gonna put those laces in my sleeve.
You better put it.
They stand out.
When you see me walking in the neighborhood wherever I go, you'll see it.
Take a picture, send it to us.
Oh yeah, I'm gonna put that in my sleeve. That's one pair, right? Yes. I'll put that in my sleeve. I don't wear them too often at work.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. One is sufficient.
How do you walk every day? All right, so, John?
Yes.
I make a motion that we approve the minutes of town board meeting of August 19th, 2014. So moved.
And seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Abstain.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
The minutes are approved. You want me to just continue with the?
Absolutely.
Okay. Under correspondence, there was a letter from Jean Marie Costello regarding the public hearing of August 19th with regard to the stop sign at Lincoln Street and Griffin Avenue. A letter from Louisa Hargrave regarding proposed redevelopment of EPCAL property at Calverton. Marta Baumiller and Cliff Baldwin, letter of support for the proposed Main Road National Historic District. Chuck Davis, contest director for AMA District 2 fly-in, letter of thanks to Sanitation Supervisor John Reed for his support for the recent event to benefit the Wounded Warriors Project. And I will make mention that I have, first of all, a letter from Councilwoman Jody Giglio with regard to the draft supplemental generic environmental impact statement. And I have 24 letters here regarding the same issue, EPCAL DGEIS, and I probably got about 30 more on my email that I didn't print out, just to make mention of all that. I'll continue.
Okay, all of those have to get to Joe, not Joe, to VHB. If you get them to Anne Marie
Oh,
Prudenti, we'll
okay,
get them.
sure,
Yeah, get them
absolutely.
to Anne Marie Prudenti, should get
And
them to
then,
VHB.
Sure,
Yes,
not a problem.
and the board as usual.
Okay, yeah, I think you all were,
I have, yeah, it's a program
CC'd
letter.
on the email.
Yeah.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah.
There were 5 pieces of correspondence for the Conservation Advisory Council. I don't know if you want me to go into that or just let it be.
No, let it be.
Okay. Under reports, Town Clerk Monthly Report for August, $12,058.66. Building Department Monthly Report for August, $64,278. And the Police Department submitted their monthly report for July. And that is it.
All right, thank you. Any other town board reports? No? All right, then we're gonna get started. We're gonna open both public hearings at the same time. It is now 7:07, and this is somewhat of a historic moment here. 7:07, I'm gonna open up the two public hearings, both scheduled for 7:05. The first one, a public hearing on the draft supplemental generic environmental impact statement for a comprehensive development plan for EPCAL, the EPCAL reuse and revitalization plan, amendment to the Town of Riverhead's comprehensive master plan, amendment to the zoning map and code, amendment to the Calverton urban renewal plan, and subdivision of the Enterprise Park at Calverton, EPCAL property. We open that public hearing, and simultaneously, we're going to open the other 7:05 public hearing, and that is a public hearing on the EPCAL reuse and revitalization plan, an updated and amended urban renewal plan for the redevelopment of a portion of the property identified and designated as an urban renewal area under the original urban renewal plan, Calverton Enterprise Park urban renewal plan. So the public hearings are open. I'm going to turn this over to Terry Elkowitz in a moment, but it's somewhat different than probably the normal public hearings you hear, because the impact statement is so comprehensive with 1,000 pages, I think, conservatively speaking, of information. The board is going to take all your information, and Ms. Elkowitz and her team are going to be transcribing. We have a transcriber here as well. If we get to about an hour and a half, 2 hours, we will break, because we need a break. The transcriber needs a break. But the town board is not going to respond directly to the comments, as we're going to take all these in and respond to them in the final environmental impact statement. So it's a little bit different than we normally would do, but it's better this way to let the experts handle it. So with that, Ms. Elkowitz.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor and members of the board. For the record, my name is Terry Elkowitz. I'm a principal at VHB at 100 Motor Parkway in Hauppauge. And we're here again tonight with you. We were here in July of 2013, I think, at our last public meeting, when this town board held a scoping meeting so that the town board could hear the comments of involved agencies and the public as to what we should study in the draft supplemental and generic environmental impact statement. And as the supervisor just said, the purpose of tonight's hearing, of course, is to take comments on this DSGEIS, as we call it, but it's also for the town board to take comments on various documents that are really town documents. You're considering adopting a reuse and revitalization plan for EPCAL, and you'll amend your comprehensive plan ultimately based on that. You're considering adopting a new zoning district and rezoning the EPCAL property to that, so you'll be ultimately, once you decide on exactly what your zoning should be, you'll be amending your zoning code. You will be updating your urban renewal plan, your Calverton urban renewal plan, to be consistent with the decisions that you make for this property. And you'll also be ultimately a subdivision will be approved for this property that will allow the town board to have some developable lots and also preservation, which I'll talk about in just a few minutes. And as the supervisor said, the purpose of this is for the town board to hear the comments of the public, and then the town board will decide what changes, if any, it may want to make to these documents. And the town board, with our assistance, I believe, will be preparing a final generic environmental impact statement that responds to all of the comments that the town board gets. So this draft supplemental generic environmental impact statement covers a number of topics, and those topics were determined by the town board after you went through a formal scoping process and heard the issues raised by all the involved agencies and the public. As the supervisor said, I clearly can't go through both of these documents that are before us, but I can run down all of the topics that you had us evaluate. Land use and zoning, socioeconomics, community facilities and services, transportation, air quality, noise, infrastructure, cultural resources, geology, soils, topography, water quality and hydrology, terrestrial and aquatic environment, petroleum and hazardous materials, visual resources, cumulative impacts, unavoidable adverse effects, irretrievable and irreversible commitment of resources, growth-inducing impacts, and the use and conservation of energy. Also, as required by the SEQA regulations and by this town board, the DSGEIS also evaluated alternatives. And it has in there draft conditions and criteria. And the board, of course, is aware of the state legislation that was passed, which basically says that upon completion of this SEQA process and adoption of conditions and criteria that will ultimately guide individual lot development on this site, applicants who comply with those conditions and criteria may be eligible for an expedited review. So the town board would actually be facilitating the economic development objectives for this property. So without going into a lot of detail, it's important for everyone to know that this town board over the past several years has been working with involved agencies, including but not limited to the State Department of Environmental Conservation, State Department of Transportation, to address issues that they were interested in. They've also met with various stakeholders, and they've taken a lot of commentary on what people would like to see. And there are some very major mitigation measures and conditions that this board has already talked about and put in its documents. Just a few examples. You have committed to maintaining a full 1,000-foot radius around all tiger salamander ponds. You have committed to the protection and maintenance of grassland on this property. You are preserving over 59% of the site as natural area. You've committed to a 50-foot buffer along Middle Country Road, and if there would be any disturbance for a temporary access before you do all the internal roadways, you would require that those areas be replanted and that buffer be maintained. And you're also requiring, and you've committed to the establishment of a 200-foot vegetated buffer along Brummett Boulevard, except of course for the access issues that we would talk about. You have also worked among, of course, yourselves, directing us, and with input from the DEC and others, on the preparation of a subdivision plan. And Kevin Walsh, my partner, is here, and he's just going to talk very briefly about what that subdivision plan is.
Thanks, Terry. Good evening, members of the board. Again, Kevin Walsh from VHB Engineering, Surveying and Landscape Architecture. And as Terry mentioned, I will just provide a very brief description of the subdivision map, which hopefully you can see tacked up on the wall. As laid out in the documents that we've prepared, the end result of this process, and one of the end results of this process, is intended to be the subdivision of the EPCAL property into marketable lots that are suitable for any variety of development based on the development code that we're proposing as part of the document. Without reciting the entire history of the project, which, as Terry mentioned, is pretty lengthy, I will note that the map currently before the board is the result of many, many months of negotiation with many of the involved agencies, in particular the New York State DEC, partially for the reason that the preservation of the habitat that was described in terms of the grassland became a very important factor in arriving at a suitable layout for the subdivision, and that's essentially why what you see on the wall may look a little disjointed compared to what you might expect to see, but there was a lot of negotiation and planning that went into that. The proposed proposed subdivision is configured in such a way that we can retain as much of the existing grassland as possible, as Terry mentioned. It respects, the significant environmental constraints on the property, including the Pine Barrens core area, existing wetlands, the salamander ponds, as was mentioned. And again, the endeavor was to provide as many marketable lots of a variety of sizes as could be accommodated within the areas we had to work with. Basically, the subdivision consists of 50 lots ranging in size from a minimum of 5 acres to approximately 28.4 acres. The actual development area encompasses about 820 acres. Of that, about 560 acres are the lots themselves, the rest being the roads, recharge basins, common areas that are necessary to serve the subdivision lots. 42 of the 50 lots will be for sale. The remainder of those 50 lots provide for things like preservation of open space, the existing town park that's to the west side of the property, the town facilities that encompass the community center at the south end of the property, as well as McKay Lake. There's a lot for expansion of the existing sewage treatment plant to accommodate the development. And there's a lot mandated by DEC for the discharge of the expanded sewage treatment plant that comes out of the Speedies permit that was issued by DEC. Excuse me. The map provides for an internal roadway network. Obviously, we've discussed the need for some temporary access to Route 25, but at the end of the day, the intent is for the entire subdivision to be served from internal roadways. Access for the bulk of the subdivision is provided at 3 places on Route 25. There is an additional access on Drummond Boulevard that provides access to a remote part of the subdivision for 5 or 6 lots down at the south end. The map provides for public utilities. It is intended that public water be extended by the Riverhead Water District to serve the property, and it was mentioned that the entire property be served by the Riverhead Sewer District as well.
So I think that concludes our formal presentation, and then, Mr. Supervisor, I know you're going to open this up to public comment, but it's also come to my attention that the town board is considering extending the public comment period, because tonight the board is going to take verbal comments, but at a point after this meeting, the town board will also accept written comments. The notice says September 15th, but I've been told the board intends to
We're gonna
extend that
do
to
it to
September
September 30th.
30th.
Extend the public comment period to September 30th. We're
So-
probably going to have a resolution come off the floor for that.
So then, once all of the comments are received by the board, of course, the board will read them, and then the board will direct us and tell us whether it wants to modify anything in the subdivision, modify anything in the documents, and will also direct us to help you respond to all of the substantive comments in a final environmental impact statement.
All right.
That concludes my presentation.
Well, thank you.
Thank you.
Then let's, who's first? Mr. Amper, first. If you
Start me with the salute to the flag.
Pledge of Allegiance, sir. If you just state your name and affiliation or hamlet for the record clearly, so that our transcriber will get that, that would be wonderful.
My name is Richard Amper. I'm Executive Director of the Long Island Pine Barrens Society. We're at 547 East Main Street here in Riverhead. Efforts to develop the former Navy Grumman property in Calverton have languished from one administration to another, seemingly forever. I suppose the people here will remember some, if not all, of the proposals: a motion picture studio, a jet port, a NASCAR track, the Wilpon deal, an indoor ski mountain. EPCAL has become the place bad ideas come to die. Administration after administration has blamed its incapacity to make EPCAL profitable on salamanders, on birds, or environmentalists in general. It's becoming increasingly clear that the real reason EPCAL hasn't been developed is the incompetency of Riverhead government itself. A year ago, in February, a group of business, environmental, and community leaders sat down together in an effort to finally overcome the obstacles preventing an economic and environmental solution appropriate to land use at EPCAL. We identified and agreed upon which areas could be developed and which should be protected. The current administration indicated support for that plan. That left only the preparation of a draft generic environmental impact statement to complete the process. That DGIS would appear to have doomed development at EPCAL once again. EIS, the agreed-upon map has been thrown out and replaced by one that does not meet economic or environmental standards. What we agreed about and what we were complimented on and what the press so wisely covered was that the environmental and economic communities, business people, architects had come together with this government to produce a plan that could work. It's not in the draft environmental impact statement. Major economic, environmental, and quality of life issues are generalized, and specific mitigation measures are not supplied in the EIS. The EIS projects more than 25,000 permanent jobs by 2035 in a town of fewer than 34,000 people. Really? Swan Lake Golf Course, Splish Splash, Drummond Park, and Calverton National Cemetery are all termed open space. Not in real life and not under state law. Sewage discharge will be north of the groundwater divide, the EIS says, but how it will be handled is not specifically provided for. Why not? The Riverhead Water District will need to drill more wells. With what effect on surface and groundwater? We don't know. The much feared traffic impacts remain unresolved. How will traffic reach the site? The EIS talks about expanding Route 25 to 5 lanes. When and how and at what expense? Can anyone forget the nightmare produced by the infamous air show? The EIS admits that there will be a loss of forested habitat, but says that it will be mitigated by preservation of forest elsewhere on the property. Say what? Instead of protecting existing grasslands, as in the 2013 recommendations of the Coalition for Open Space at EPCAL, the EIS plans to create new grasslands by burying a portion of one of the runways, then planting grass on it. Curious. The EIS calls for a 50-foot undeveloped buffer along Route 25 to limit visual impact. We all know too well Riverhead's handling of buffers. The EIS claims no socioeconomic impact from the proposed development. Seriously? Taxes are to be waived for EPCAL newcomers. New infrastructure will cost millions, as will needed government services. Increased town debt will likely result, along with higher taxes for existing residents. For years, all of the experts said EPCAL could only be financially successful if used for commercial and industrial purposes. Now residential and retail have been thrown into the mix. There's no justification for it. Why won't Riverhead Town stop its addiction to more residential and retail? Where has it ever worked? The biggest problem of all is that recent state legislation, which created the Enterprise Park at Calverton Reuse and Revitalization Area, proposes that this DGEIS be substituted for the project review process required under the State Environmental Quality Review Act. While Riverhead Town's capacity to supplant SECRA remains a legal question, it is inarguable that this draft generic environmental impact statement must address all of these issues to include specific mitigation measures, triggers for such mitigation, realistic expectations that traffic and economic obstacles can be realistically overcome, and how the economic and environmental claims of the EIS can actually be realized. Riverhead leaders from the business and environmental community who have bent over backwards to try at last to move forward the reuse of EPCAL have been ignored by the latest government of Riverhead to promise that EPCAL's time has finally come. Alas, the DGEIS is legally, environmentally, and economically unsupportable and will require wholesale reworking if it is to serve as the blueprint for the long-promised boon to the town of Riverhead instead of just the latest boondoggle in the long history of this sorry reuse process. Finally, our reading of news accounts of the sorry state of Riverhead's economy and EPCAL's projected role in reviving it suggests that residents and others who care about the town's future should not rely on this latest promise of prosperity via EPCAL just around the corner. The notion that the problems associated with the reuse of EPCAL will be overcome by 2015 or 2016 or even by the end of the decade is preposterous. And once again, it won't be because of the environment, but because of still another administration in Town Hall. it seems to lack the capacity to get this job done.
Thank you, Mr. Escher. Next speaker, please. Yes, please step up.
Good evening, Supervisor Walter, members of the Town Board. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. My name is Bob DeLuca, and I serve as president of Group for the East End, located in Southold, New York. I'm here representing the conservation and community planning interests of several thousand member households across the region, including several hundred member households right here in Riverhead. We have reviewed the DGEIS and plan to submit more detailed comments in line with the allotted time frame. But tonight I want to focus really on the top 6 issues of concern that we've identified. And those issues of concern go back to our reflection on a letter of July 11, 2011 that we provided to the town regarding our principal concerns for the future development and the GEIS for this project. So first and foremost, I think we're very concerned about the palette of uses which is proposed in this document. As Mr. Amper pointed out, the retail and the residential component, to my knowledge, were never seen as a principal part of this project. Residential development, more residential development requires more service, more expense to support those services. And the retail component, I just want to remind the board, when you did the Wading River study, you found that while Wading River could accommodate about 88,000 square feet of additional retail, and that was described as considering future development of this site, there was actually 200,000 square feet of space still available there. The 800,000 square feet proposed as a possibility here seems significantly out of proportion with 1, what is currently available, 2, what's currently needed, and what could ever possibly be needed here in light of the Route 58 corridor. So I'd like you to take a look at that and please have the consultants address the basis for that. Second item really is a comparative assessment of the EPCAL design alternatives. As you've heard, and as we were part of the discussion regarding an alternative design, we felt that we had a design that met the yield that the town was looking for, met the needs that the town was looking for, and also met the natural resource and open space concerns, grassland concerns that had been raised over some period of time. That alternative is mentioned in the DGEIS, but it is not provided at a level suitable for comparative assessment, which is the rule under the law. So we would like to see the map that was provided by the folks concerned about open space at EPCAL included in the DGEIS, and not just an outline of where the open space is, but where the specific lots are that we had lined up, then take that and compare it to what's been proposed so you can have a fair and honest discussion about whether or not one alternative is better than the other with everybody looking at the same information. Beyond that, with what's been proposed, there's roughly 11 lots, and you'll get this in writing, but basically lots 10, 11, 15, 16, 23, 24, 27, 30, 31, and 33 are all out of line with the proposal that was provided to you by the Coalition for Open Space at EPCAL. We're talking in total of somewhere between 130 and maybe 150 acres, and we are again convinced that you could work to accomplish that goal if you would go back in and look at that original alternative submitted. Item number 3 is the grasslands management issue. The DGEIS calls for a long-term grassland management plan for the site, which is great, but there aren't sufficient details to make that goal operational. And so if a DGEIS is to set the platform for what you're going to be doing in the future, and we hear significant language about, expedited reviews based on state law, you really need to know how you're going to set that up. There's a lot of ways to do it. We certainly would advise convening a grasslands working group with regional experts, environmental stakeholders, but you have to figure out long-term, how is that going to operate? How does it operate within the context of staging for development, infrastructure development, lot design, lot layout? Who's going to manage that? What's the board's role in overseeing that if you want that grassland management mitigation to work? In addition, and on a similar note, the traffic impact mitigation is also something of significant concern to us. There is language in the DGEIS that talks about specific triggers when additional roadway infrastructure would have to be constructed. Again, it's a good idea. How does that become operational? Does every person who buys a lot pay into a fund? Does the guy who's there on the 5,000th vehicle trip pay all of it? Does the town get stuck paying for it? How is it made operational? If you don't have that, I can assure you, and anybody who's in land use here will tell you the same thing, it's going to get debated on every single application, and you're going to be reworking this every single time you try to figure out what may be one of the most important mitigation features of the entire plan. You really need to look at how that's going to get paid for, who's going to do it, and how the cost is equitably distributed over time. Item number 5 is the issue of the required permits and approvals, and one of the things I would ask the town to take a careful look at is there is language and reference and inference throughout the document that talks about the expedited review process, and some language that even says things like, once this is done, you won't need to get any additional permits. We don't read the EPCAL law that way. What I see in the EPCAL law, and I'll give you a quote from it, it says, after the adoption of an EPCAL reuse and revitalization plan and the final GEIS, the town may make application to such state agencies with jurisdiction to issue general permits for the review of any actions to implement the EPCAL reuse and revitalization plan. I just want the document to accurately reflect what the reality is. There's not an automatic carte blanche approval here for anything, and that may not have been what's intended, but as you read through the document, you'll find in a variety of locations where that appears to be what's being said. I think if you put forward what exactly has to happen for that expedited review, that would be fine, but it has to be in this document for this document to have meaning. Finally, the issue of development design and other aesthetic issues, early on in the planning process, we provided substantive recommendations for site design that would minimize the potential for sprawl, maximize opportunities for land preservation, and follow the best current planning principles for development design, energy efficiency, and a campus-style layout. As an example, we suggested decreasing lot lines, shared parking, limited infrastructure expansion, and increasing some building heights to reduce energy expenditure and the overall development footprint of the site. The generic environmental impact statement recognizes that these issues have been considered, talks about some ideas about energy conservation, but when you really come down to it, you have little more than a 1960s or 1970s era industrial park development design. Those consume more land, they use more energy, and they create significant visual impacts that in a place like this, I think you can probably do more to avoid. As with the amended subdivision design, it remains our firm belief that the progressive development design could readily accommodate the economic goals sought by the town without exacerbating the obvious environmental and aesthetic impacts of a traditional sprawling industrial park. I was part of the Gabreski Plan Development District process, which is more of a campus-style process, and I think about the time and energy that went into that 55-acre site that may roughly be the size of only 2 lots here. So there really is a fair amount of work to do to get it right, and we certainly understand the town's desire to want to get going, but if you don't set the right foundation, it's just going to be more trouble down the line. In addition to the overarching limitations of the project's conceptual design, the GEIS doesn't provide very much information about the site requirements, building materials, visual aesthetics, clearing, and energy conservation. Again, how does that all become operational when an individual walks in and buys a lot and says, where do I go from here? Is it a site plan process? How does it work? I think the DGIS can set those rules, standards, give the public a chance to look at them, and be clear about exactly what the process is going to be when those projects come in. In the end, EPCAL can be designed to accomplish the goals that work for the region, but it can't succeed in the absence of a comprehensive vision and a deep commitment to environmental planning, a strict and binding implementation strategy that will assure the desired outcome is achieved. As the largest single development parcel left on Long Island, short of Gardner's Island, which is actually just about the same size, I find out, our region demands the most thoughtful and progressive development plan and a management strategy for the future. We greatly appreciate your attention to these concerns and look forward to submitting our detailed comments in the future and reviewing the results. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. DeLuca. The next speaker, please.
Good evening, sir.
Just state your name and affiliation or hamlet for the record.
My name is Phil Barbado. I'm Vice President of the Riverhead Neighborhood Preservation Coalition, and I'd like to make a few remarks. First of all, thank you to you, the board members, for the opportunity to speak on this proposal, and the work that's been done so far is not insignificant. We realize that. However, I believe this DGEIS could be summed up this way. So, you want increased tax revenues and economic revitalization? No problem. Just allow any project proposed at EPCAL to be approved and collect those taxes. Don't worry about the impacts on public schools, water, sewage infrastructure, waste disposal, noise, air contamination, You can fix those problems as you go along, even though you didn't estimate what they're gonna cost now. You'll have plenty of money rolling in, right? And those pesky traffic problems, no problem. Somebody will widen the roads and put in new traffic signals, whatever it costs. And what if your estimate of the ultimate size of this economic engine ends up being too low, and the impacts you guessed at turn out to be worse than you imagined? No problem. Somebody will come up with some new mitigation measures to fix it all. As you say, and this is a quote from the report, no one can predict over a multi-year period what specific uses would be developed and at what levels. I don't think so. So, why bother predicting? Just take a guess and hope you're not too far off. Anyway, these uses that you're allowing, they've worked so well for other towns to our west. We should just not worry about their impacts. Just look at how low the taxes are in those other towns, right? Aside from those general comments, I'd like to make a few specific comments and hopefully be more on the suggestive point of view. First of all, by evaluating, and this is a quote also, theoretical mixed-use development program, the DGEIS sets up a moving target that is impossible to hit. This is much too imprecise, and it will be impossible to realistically evaluate, as is proven by the document. The town needs to set firm zoning and firm rules for this site. These can be changed if ever necessary in the future using the current methods for doing so, not for expediting something that's not going to work. It will not be advantageous for the long-term future of this town if the zoning is left so indefinite. From the executive summary, page VII, quote, no one can predict over a multi-year period what specific uses would be developed and at what levels. If you have more specific zoning and more specific rules, you will be able to make those predictions and you will be able to manage the development at the site. Accepting that statement as inevitable will not lead to proper management of the site, and it's not adequate or workable for us. Second comment. Including residential and retail uses in the proposed rezoning is just not in line with the long-standing goals for EPCAL. It is well known that residential use is a net loss to the town's budget. And we already have too much vacant retail space in the town. Do we really want to create more? Third comment. The DGEIS claims that the tax base will be increased, for example, on page IX of the executive summary. But what are the associated costs that go with this development? The net effect on the town's budget and the other districts serving this site have to be estimated as well. Without the expenses, we're looking at only one side of the equation and missing the real impact. We need to know what the net impact on the town is going to be, not what the income is going to be. Fourth, for school district impacts, the DGEIS uses a figure of 0.22 school-aged children per unit. This seems, ridiculously low, and in any event, leaves out the impact of the children of the other employees at the site, some of which we think will be moving to our town, yes? If the trips, in quotes, represent the number of employees, the potential impact of thousands of new students has been woefully underestimated. Fifth, for traffic mitigation, the DGEIS recommends many road and signaling improvements over a 7.5-mile corridor on Route 25. But it leaves out any recommendation for whom will pay for these improvements and the estimate of how much they will cost. Will these costs be borne by the new tenants at EPCAL, thereby reducing the attractiveness of the lots? Or, as the usual case, will they be borne by existing taxpayers of the town? It's not answered in the document. 6, for the water supply and the sewage disposal infrastructure costs, who will pay for them? And what are the estimates of these costs? Again, will these costs fall on existing taxpayers, as has happened in so many other places on Long Island, and our taxes are going to be raised? 7, the DGEIS proposes setting limits or triggers, such as trips, in quotes, to monitor the impact of future development at the site. And we suggest instead that the town set a review standard for all proposed development and that all proposals be required to prove before approval can be granted that the proposed development will be a net positive impact on the town's budget. That's the ultimate reason for having redevelopment at this site, isn't it? To be a net positive impact on the town's budget? So why don't we demand each proposal to prove to us that there will be a net positive impact on the town's budget? Instead of measuring how many trips go by a signal on the road, that's silly. So what we were saying is the tax revenue will be compared to the resultant expense to the town, and only those projects that can show a positive result would be approved. Monitoring data such as trips are after the fact, after the damage is done, and will be fairly meaningless in the future. Finally, we urge you to take a more realistic view of the potential of EPCAL. If we truly want improved life for our present and future residents, we need to be specific about the land uses we want, and we need to perform a careful analysis of the tax income compared to the expenses to the town and its districts, school, water, sewage. Rushing through this proposal and setting up the subdivision so that some lots can be sold off to improve the town's short-term finances will not ensure that our town will be better off in the future. But it will ensure that Riverhead will eventually look and feel like everywhere else on this island. Thank you for your time.
Next speaker. Is there another speaker? Yeah, step up. You guys should line up at the podium. We'd hate to close the meeting because you're sitting in the audience.
Good evening, board members. I'm the fourth one to speak, and I don't have a title, so I'm going to make one up.
Well, give us your name and hamlet.
I'm the vice president of the DePiro household in Wading River. My wife is the president of the DePiro household in Wading River.
Former school bus driver.
What's your first and last
My name is
name?
Nicholas DePiro, and I live in Wading River.
Thank you.
Back in January of 1994, when Grumman was still here, I worked in the planning and budgeting department. And because of that, I knew that Grumman was no longer going to be here at the end of '94. They left in 1995. They lost the Grumman, they lost the F-14 and the A-6 contract. So shortly after that, they vacated the property. At a town board meeting in February of 1994, I, along with the late Bob Tenenberg, bless his soul, we all indicated that this town was given a gift that should not go to waste. Well, for the most part, what a waste this gift turned out to be. Many people had substantial proposals. For instance, there was a NASCAR proposal, a small commercial air park, we don't want to use the word airport, a movie studio, polo, and I suggested that this site would have been a good place to consolidate most of the armories in Suffolk County. The supervisor at that time told me that this was too political. Now most of the armories are consolidated at Bayshore. That move must have not been too political. So that would have been a good proposal. But anyway, it didn't happen. The naysayers seem to be the proverbial squeaky wheel that prevents many good deeds and ideas from being done here in Riverhead Town. A NASCAR track would have made too much noise. Noise for 2 or 3 weekends a month, not to mention the spin-off of business that NASCAR would have brought to the area. Before Ski Mountain turned out to be such a disaster, the proponents of NASCAR made Riverhead an offer that they couldn't refuse. Riverhead refused. That ended NASCAR in Calverton. Another proposal for consideration was to turn the former Grumman site into a transportation hub. A rail spur could have been expanded, and an airstrip was already in place. What happened to the buses that would have filled out that tri-part the three part. You had the air, the rail spur, and we needed buses. The town board could have offered Hampton Jitney property within the EPCAL site, but instead they allowed a bus depot on Edwards Avenue, and that's going to turn into a very crowded area when that comes to fruition. A transportation hub would have relieved traffic on our consolidated roads. Housing definitely does not belong at EBCAL. Face reality. How many businesses want to come out here to Suffolk County? Businesses are thriving well, whatever businesses do thrive well in the western part of Suffolk County. And a lot of businesses are leaving Suffolk County because of the high cost of electricity and the high cost of taxes here, not only on Long Island, but in New York State as well. A transportation hub and entertainment facilities, which I see now, would be the only feasible thing to have out in Calverton site. The eastern end of Suffolk County should be known as the area where people want to come to be entertained on the North Fork and South Fork. Do they go out there for business? No. They go out there for all of the good sites that are out there, places to see. Businesses out in Calverton, what infrastructure is set up for that? That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker. Good evening.
Good evening, everyone.
Have your name and hamlet or affiliation?
Yes, I will. To Supervisor Walters and all the committee members. My name is Sarah Bullock, and I'm a paid taxpayer in this town, and I'm the president of my house on Northfield Turnpike. What I know is that you have not because you ask not. And we cannot sit at our homes and with our friends and with our families and talk about what's going on in this town, what's not going right, and what should be done, and then you don't come out and talk. Then you can't say anything. I want to know what is going on in EPCAL down there, that fancy new old EPCAL. And I'm hearing every morning on the radio, WRIV, Bruce Tria, and the committee members here, Mr. Dunleavy, Mr. Wooten, Sean Walters, all of them, he interviews them. And I sit there and I listen every single morning. I would like to know, and I actually would like to see something in writing, what is going on over there. Some white material over there, what's going on over there? Grass all high up here, you can hardly see what's going on. I would like to see in writing what is going on over there, and in words that I can understand, and not with all these long pages, this will A, B, C, and D. I would like to know. This is my second time. I haven't been here since 2010, and that's when he had that big rainstorm. And it was March 29th, 2010. I always remember this is my grandson's birthday. And it rained like 40 days and 40 nights, it seemed. And it was a big flood, and I had one mess at my house. And let me tell you, as being a taxpayer, paid taxpayer in this town, I came to this office, I can't tell you how many times, and how many times I called. I got carpal tunnel family. And I got no help at all. The only thing I got was a $25,000 bill for the trouble that I got. What is the things that I get for being a taxpayer in this town? What do I get? What, a widow? Nothing? Not even a phone call back? That's not right. But the thing of it is, what I'm hearing on the radio, Bruce Tria in the morning, oh yes, over in EPCAL, what they want to do is this. Okay, some big time guys are coming over there and doing research, and we want housing over there. Oh, wait a minute. No, we don't mean housing for just anybody. We mean for the big shots that's coming over there. Well, they can stay when they're finished with their thing. No. Let them get their own places to stay. When I was traveling up to work at 100 miles a day, when I got stuck on the road or whatever, I had to sleep in a car or find somewhere to sleep. Nobody offered me any like that. No, get your own place to stay. Then we talk about the big fancy golf course and all that, and the ski mountain, whatever that one said. No, we don't need that. And we all know that this town is stored out of control up there on 58. That is a death trap, and there is still no traffic control. Now, we live right here in the town, so many people say, I'm not even going up on 58. That's a shame. Live in River, we're not gonna go up there because of traffic. I almost gotta kill myself up there, be honest about it. When they were working out there one night day, and they all comes in the way, and I go over and thought that was the way to go in. Yeah, I'm going to off-going traffic. The people in the back of me won't let me get in, and I thought I was a goner. This is not right. This is not right. Why in the world, there's another big pot of worms here, worrying about what's going on with whatever you call it, EPCAL, whatever it is, talking about that firehouse down there on Main Street, and want to give it away now for a penny? No. Do your studies like you're supposed to do. Stop rushing to judgment with all these things. Plan out where it's going to be good for everybody in the community, and that whatever is done will reflect the authenticity of everybody here. And then almost one more thing. You know, not everybody that lawyers and councilmen and all that like this, and the derelicts that were on the street, a lot of them weren't always that way. A lot of those derelicts on the street were councilmen and lawyers and judges and all, and they got down on their luck. Why don't somebody go out there and interview them and say, if you had a chance, tell me what would you do? You'd be surprised at what you would find out. You might even find your answer. And then what's wrong with the old-fashioned box where you put your things, a suggestion box? What's wrong with that? Oh, where are we going to put it at? Now over there, they want to rent here. Well, you can still take it to my house and I'll bring it down here and have them look at it. We have to start using more common sense. And it's still all about money when you get right down to it. It's all about money. And the only thing you can hear from over there in Albany, well, what we're going to do about this Social Security and all this, that, and now that, blah, blah, blah. They ain't talking about my Social Security, because I can barely make it. If I miss one of them, I'm in big trouble. But some people do have it, and it's out of control. And they talk about on the TV, oh, this money got a house in this place, that place. The poor people need to be served. And in the end, all that you have is not going to do you any good anyway. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next speaker. Oh. Go ahead, Ray, you're there. Just state your name and affiliation for the record.
My name is Ray Maynard. I'm the owner of Skydive Long Island in Calverton. Good evening, Town Board and Supervisor. I'm also a property owner in EPCAL. I have been a responsible business owner and an avid supporter of this town, the community, and this town board for the last 14 years. I'm happy to finally see movement towards further development in EPCAL. That said, however, after all these years of being your supporter, I really can't believe that this board is planning a subdivision that will compromise my business. Rather than incorporating the assets already available within EPCAL to create an intelligent, business-oriented economic development plan for EPCAL, you are proposing housing in EPCAL, which is guaranteed to be detrimental to my business. There are numerous examples of when housing is brought into or near areas that are deemed noisy, of how these new communities untimely form a group to complain until they get unwanted businesses shut down. I'm sure many of you remember the Bridgehampton Speedway. You are proposing mixed use, but aviation is not included. You're proposing bringing in a hotel and retail businesses. I am sure that some of these future businesses and hotel guests will find it desirable and convenient to have a runway on premise. Aviation has been a long-standing history in Calverton. Aviation is synonymous with EPCAL. This airport was once one of the most impressive in the United States. Previous boards, with extreme short-sightedness, closed a 7,000-foot runway, which can never be used again for aviation, and that was a crime. And now this board is considering chopping off a portion of the remaining runway. And to what end? To have a retail establishment at the tail end of an active runway? What business outside of aviation would be happy with that? None. This town board boasts the growth in this town and the local tourism. Yet the town board doesn't see the future opportunities this jewel of a runway provides in the overall business development plan properly designed by EPCAL. I implore you to reconsider your actions develop a plan that makes sense for APCAL. It's a business area. We already have light industrial business here. Create more business opportunities, which in turn create more jobs. Your focus should be on jobs and business, not housing. This town should develop a mixed-use, business-oriented, business-focused plan which incorporates the existing runway. Bring in hotels and light industrial. Open up some general aviation and maximize the potential this airport and the existing assets provides, rather than, like previous boards, plan for the further demise by chopping off part of the runway and creating housing. I hope you recognize that there is a better development opportunity in EPCAL and that you restructure your plan accordingly. Thank you very much.
Yes.
Good evening, Mr. Supervisor, members of the board. Thank you for the opportunity to address you. My name is Mary Ann Johnston. I'm president of the affiliated Brookhaven Civic Organizations. We've been here before. You know, you can't get to EPCAL unless you come through Brookhaven. You just can't, even if they develop the runway. But the reality is EPCAL is not suited for housing. Never was. You were given that opportunity, that gift, to replace the jobs that were lost when Grumman left, not to develop another Levittown. It's ridiculous. I've looked at the plan and the mitigation measures that you're submitting, such as they are, they're so thinly veiled that I couldn't tell you whether there'll be a grassland there in 5 years, nonetheless eternity. This is not how you do it. You plan with specificity. That's why it's called planning. That's what we need to do. I'm very concerned that I recently saw Caithness 3, LLC. We just stopped Caithness 2. We're not going to have a 3. We don't need to move in the direction as a town to develop fossil fuel plants at EPCAL, of all places, while you're trying to preserve something. You can't do it. It's really critical that you address those traffic impacts. They affect my residents, my communities. You can't get there without going through Brookhaven. So what triggers are you going to set up? Where's Brookhaven in this process? I don't see a soul here from Brookhaven except APCO. Why not? They need to be involved in this process. This was a regional asset, not a carve-up Levittown. This is inappropriate, and we will be submitting written comments covering the many deficiencies. I'm very distressed to see that this plan developed by the coalition was tossed. We used to call Riverhead the home of every stupid idea. You know, I had no idea that the best one would be you wanted to be Centereach. Holy crap. Thank you.
Yes, sir. If you give us your name and affiliation or hamlet for the record.
Yeah, hi, my name is Gordon Howard. I don't have any affiliation. I am a member of the Sierra Club. I go through EPCAL a few times a week on my bicycle. There's a path that was paved, the old security path for Grumman. It's an absolutely beautiful place. It's breathtakingly beautiful. And I highly recommend that everybody here go and look at the place before you people destroy it. Because people like you are destroying the whole planet, and you guys are right on board, and keep going. You're doing a great job. And we won't have any planet left when you're done. Bye.
Thank you. Yes. Have your name and affiliation, sir.
A little hard to follow. I'm former Congressman George Hochberger. I do live half a mile east of the Riverhead town line in the town of Southall. But I do have an interest, as you know. Certainly others have spoken about the DGEIS and the impact it has in general. I'm here to talk about a specific issue that is important to the people, the taxpayers of Riverhead. As most of you know, I wrote the legislation in the early 90s that gifted the 2,900 acres of the EPCAL to the town of Riverhead. When Grumman left, and I know a little bit about that because I worked on the Grumman F-14 Tomcat for 6 years as an engineer at the Calverton facility before I was elected to the State Assembly and then eventually to Congress. So I know a little bit about the property. And when Grumman left, clearly the goal of the federal government was to just sell the property and put the money into the U.S. Treasury. At that point, the people of Riverhead asked me as their congressman from the East End to do what I could to try and provide the taxes that were being paid by Grumman on a voluntary basis with payments in lieu of taxes to compensate for that loss because Riverhead needed the money badly. And so I went to work as the congressman, and the net result is, after going round and round with Senator John Glenn, who just wanted to sell it, I was successful in convincing them that they should give the property to Riverhead so it could be developed for economic development purposes. That was the commitment that I made to President Clinton and to the Congress at that time in 1993. The property, all 2,900 acres, would be used for economic development. Now, obviously, through the years, through many administrations in the town, both Democratic and Republican, we are where we are today, which is that basically 500 acres went to Jan Berman, the buildings and other facilities that were obvious for use at the Grumman site. And the net result is 500 acres have been used, and that's fine. The issue has been what's going on with the other 2,400 acres in terms of development. And so, obviously, I was pleased last year when the Republican Town Board, by a 5-0 vote, hired me to help with the program in terms of getting the DEC to finally give some ground and allow some economic development. Because as you know, with the property sort of being ignored in many ways, habitat developed, and the net result is folks said, well, we got to protect the critters and the area. And for a variety of reasons, we are where we are today. So the question is, where do we go from here? I was pleased to be part of the program to help get the state law through the legislation, through the state legislature last year that gives you the capability that you are currently executing. And certainly that's great, along with getting the DEC to at least agree to this roughly 600 acres of economic development as you presented it on the map. But I was still not happy because my commitment was all 2,900 acres would go to economic development. But I'm also a realist, and I realize that 20 years after gifting the land over, all the acres are not going to be used for economic development. So what we have before us now is probably the best program that you can come up with at the time, with modifications as you will probably make as a function of inputs from people and the concurrence of the Department of Environmental Conservation, because you own the land, but clearly they have a big control over how you use the land, and I understand that. My concern is that, you know, when I wrote that legislation, the intent was to help the people of Riverhead, to provide a tax base, to provide money to compensate for the loss of the Grumman money. And we never intended it to be a burden. But let me tell you what will be a burden. Right now, you have a 7,000-foot abandoned runway, the western runway, because the 10,000-foot runway is being used. Certainly skydivers there, there'll be other uses. But the 7,000-foot runway on the west side is intended to be covered with soil and grasses grown, which in my view is a total waste of that facility. And I think even George, I've talked to him about this, you know, as a farmer, he knows that if you put 6 inches of soil on there, put on grasses, it'll be dead in the summer. I mean, there's no drainage. How are you going to keep the grasses going? So it makes sense to use that runway for a different purpose. And of course, George Bartonet, former town councilman, several months ago, had an article in the local news review saying, put solar on there. That makes sense. Why waste that beautiful base of the 7,000-foot runway and the taxiways associated with it? And I agree with that. And I was approached by a solar company, a prominent solar company out of Virginia, and they have put in a proposal to install 20 megawatts of solar on that runway and to pay for the next 20 years as part of the Long Island Power Authority request for proposals for renewable energy. They will pay 20 years to lease that property to put those solar panels. The alternative is, if we don't use it for solar purposes, and this may be the last and only opportunity we have, the current 280 megawatt RFP that LIPA closed out on March 31st and is going to be making decisions on by the end of the year, if we don't do that, then we're going to have a situation where DEC will make you cover that runway, they will make you plant grasses, and it will cost you over $1 million. It was never our intention that that property should be a burden to the taxpayers of Riverhead. You were supposed to make money with it. So the best alternative right now, in my view, and that's why I'm here, is to appeal to the board to give site control to Heliosage, which is the company that has put in a live, active proposal that is under consideration by LIPA, PSE&G right now. They'll be making a decision by the end of the year, but clearly, when they put in the proposal, it was on the basis of having a plan to achieve site control. And the plan was, from March 31st until LIPA makes the decision, to get the town board to say, yes, we approve the site. And therefore, it's available for LIPA to consider putting in 20 megawatts of solar. So that's why I'm here, and that is the goal. Now, people will argue, well, there should have been competition. The land was never offered up because, and the reason it wasn't was because we had this deal, which is before you now, which supposedly DEC will approve, and I assume that they will. And obviously, the town board did not want to disrupt that program because for 20 years we've had nothing. Once Berman bought the 500 acres, they finally have a plan that makes a lot of sense. Now, you may want to modify it, you may have ways to improve it, and that's fine. Nothing is ever perfect. But there's a plan on the table, and I'm convinced that DEC will approve it. And that's why the town board has not been willing to provide site control, because they do not want to blow up this deal with DEC. But let me tell you, I have offered my services at no cost to the town. You paid me enough last year. I will offer my services this year at no cost to the town to work with DEC and convince them that they should approve your plan, and that in addition, they should allow 20 megawatts of solar to be installed on that runway. So instead of wasting $1 million of your taxpayers' money, instead you will make probably 5, 6, who knows, $8 million over the next 20 years by leasing out that runway for the purpose of the solar. And I think even on the environmentalist side, this makes sense. I mean, grasses are nice and all that, but producing solar energy, offsetting our use of foreign oil, giving us a better situation both nationally and also locally, that makes sense. And that's what we should be doing. Now, as I say, one might argue, well, we didn't have a competition, and everything the town does has to be competed. So, grant site control. I'll get DEC to say yes, and if someone jumps up from another solar company and says, well, wait a minute, I should have had the right to bid on that lease, fine. Have a competition after the fact. But remember also that nothing is 100%. Heliosage only has a proposal before LIPA. They have to select it. They are making the final decision. Just as in the 95 acres that you set aside as an energy park, in March you passed 6 resolutions that allowed a variety of companies to put in solar, fuel cell, and even the Caithness folks had a piece of that. And you gave them a blanket approval to go ahead and basically be approved for the site. And you let LIPA make the decision as to who will be selected from those people. I'm asking you the same thing. There may well be some other company that either was smart enough or dumb enough to put in a proposal to put solar on the 7,000-foot runway, because there were inquiries. George and I talked about that. People were interested in that runway. Maybe someone else put in a proposal. So give us a blanket approval. Let me work with DEC and convince them that they should allow 20 megawatts of solar on that one runway. And at least let's take another 100 acres of the FCAL and put it to economic development purposes. Because right now, you know, as I say, you had 2,900 acres, Berman got 500, this is about 600 that we're talking here. There's still a lot of acreage that is not going to go to economic development. Let's at least put this small piece of it into solar energy production. And let's make money for the town instead of costing the town potentially. Because, mark my words, if you don't allow this, DEC is going to be all over you for many years till you finally put soil on that ground and plant grasses. And you don't want to do that. It's $1 million to the taxpayers to do that. It's a stupid waste of money. The better use is 20 megawatts of solar. And, you know, my feeling is, as I say, I'm willing to work at this at no cost. You paid me well enough last year to get where we are today. Let's do something positive with the property. You already have a plan, modify it. Let's get back to DEC and let's get them to say yes. It worked last year because they knew what my goal was, which was economic development, and that was one of the winning arguments that helped us get the DEC to blink. We can get them to blink again. We can make money for the people of Riverhead, the taxpayers of Riverhead, by getting that 20 megawatts of solar in place. So I appeal to you, please give us site control. Let me fight with DEC, and let's turn a lemon into lemonade. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And next, sir.
Yes, my name is Robert Boehm, B-O-E-H-M. I'm in Manorville. Now, I was coming here today to talk about one specific thing, but other speakers now have triggered thoughts in my mind. Now, the last speaker is talking about solar power and use of the runway. All well and good, but has anybody been reading Newsday lately on the study about PSE&G is saying that LIPA had basically overbuilt or overcommitted billions and billions and billions of dollars, and they have these long-term commitments? Now, are we going to get involved with something else who are paying more and more money? If we can't get out of some of those other things, then, I mean, solar power is all well and good, but then we'll have yet additional stuff that we don't need. And as far as the matter of grassland is concerned and relocating it, I live in Manorville. If anybody knows Manorville, you know we have sand. I always wanted to live on the beach, but I live in Manorville and I have sand. And when grass grows, I'm happy that it grows. And you don't relocate grass in sand that's been established and established and established. So I think that is, the relocation of the grassland is totally unfeasible, judging by the environment. What I really came to talk about is access to the building site. I live on River Road, which is just down from the Swan Lake Golf Course, and it feeds into Grumman Boulevard, and then River Road makes a right-hand turn and continues on and backs on the property. I understood initially that there were going to be 3 entrances added to the property off of Route 25. And I thought, good, they're not going to affect the southern portion where I live, but now I understand that there is going to be one. Now, when you had the Sandy car situation, I live on River Road. Limit of weight, 8 tons. River Road is not a direct north-south access. You basically have to do some really circuitous doing. Next road down is Lime Road, also 8 tons. That has access off of Wading River Manor Road. Next down is Wading River Road itself, also an 8-ton road. That is the direct north-south from the expressway up to 25. The only other direct is Edwards Avenue, which is considerably east of the property. Edwards Avenue is backlogged already now. Sometimes it takes me 2 or more tries to make the left-hand turn up there. Now you're going to be adding the bus station. So the thing is, you have a problem with the east-west access, but you have trouble even getting to 25. So those are basically my concerns that affect. I would hope that should this development take place, that the road work goes in first from 25 onto the site rather than bringing things off the existing entrance, which is on Grumman Boulevard, which will mean that I will be getting all sorts of trucks and things past my house. That will also happen on Town Line. That will also happen on Wading River Manor. So those are my concerns. Thank you.
Thank you.
Next.
Hello, my name is John Ehlers. I'm a land surveyor, E-H-L-E-R-S. And I did the original survey of the Grumman property when the town acquired it from the Navy. And I did the subsequent subdivision for Jan Berman. Was involved in that, not the engineering. I'm worried. I hear things, again, on WRIV in the morning. I've heard 1 or 2 of you say that lots would be sold by summer. And I'm thinking, impossible. And then I hear that, well, if the lots aren't sold that quickly, then we'll get a bridge loan. And that'll carry us through. And I just want everyone to understand and appreciate the fact that you cannot sell a lot until you've put in the roads, the sewer, the water, all the infrastructure, and that all gets in. Nobody's going to buy it. You can't buy a lot. How long is that going to take? It's going to take years and years. When I bought my house up on Peninsula Path in 1984, I was paying $1,700 in taxes. My taxes are now over $12,000 a year. Come on. The bridge loan fails. That doesn't get developed as quickly as you want, and we got a disaster here. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi, I'm Greg Fisher. I'm a resident of Calverton. And I have 3 degrees in business, 30 years in strategic planning, and in the interest of full disclosure, I'm also a New York State comptroller candidate right now. I'm here to speak really on 2 vectors. One is feasibility, and the second one is cash flow. And on feasibility, I'd like to incorporate the gentleman that said that mixing residential and light industrial is usually toxic to these kinds of developments. If you look around the country, you don't find really successful industrial developments, tech centers, et cetera, with mixed use. It just doesn't pan out. The other thing is we're down to a piece of property, as Mr. Hochbrucker pointed out, that is really very small compared to a lot of successful similar efforts around the country. So again, another reason not to put residential development in it, to use what is left for industrial, light industrial. On a cash flow basis, again, very concerned because we don't have in hand letters of intent or any kind of binder from anything that would be an anchor for development here. We don't really have a place to start. We've somewhat developed arbitrary checkerboard of lots, but we really don't know who wants to put what where. So that is kind of like a supply-side economic theory to say that if we build it, they will come, and that is really not wise. You don't know who's coming. There hasn't been significant outreach to create who's coming. I know there are some groups that are still interested in developing entertainment, racing, etc. And maybe that is still under consideration as a possibility, but you still need to have some anchor or anchors, and you have to have some people expressing a serious interest. Otherwise, it's not really wise to start to parcel out what could be key parcels and unavailable to organizations that have a grander plan. There's always the possibility, too, of proposing this with the proper guidance of being a targeted development, to say we were going to do nothing but pharmaceutical or nothing but joint replacements or some particular use, or electronics or software, and targeting it and marketing it that way. I don't think the proper studies have been done to say that we can't look at it that way and have a very, because we are down to a small piece of property, to focus on a particular sector, a sector that might have viability for good jobs over the next 20, 30 or more years. Biotech being one of the better of those, and we do have a lot of pharmaceutical companies on Long Island. Long Island does seem to attract pharmaceuticals and biotech, so that's a possibility. But I think we're looking at it backwards to say build the roads, cut it up, and then try and sell it. Again, it is, and to incorporate what some other people said, we're going to spend a lot of money, do a lot of bonding. If we wind up holding this, it's very expensive. It's another town dump problem for a small town, another big debt service for a small town. And with apologies, I think the best way is to find those anchor type ventures that will draw other similar smaller ventures in and target and just preserve it for light industrial research, but absolutely no housing. It is toxic to this kind of development. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ed Purcell, East Main Street, Riverhead. Number one, I go along with it. Most of the other speakers, that housing, there's just no reason to put housing in there up at EPCAL. Also, with the retail, that would be a cash cow, but that would only move the retail from where it is now further west, because as anybody who lives in Riverhead knows, the stores on the eastern end and have just closed up, and they keep moving west. So there's absolutely no reason to put any large retail, a deli, something that would be conducive with businesses that are there as a special use, absolutely, but not general retail. That just is it's a waste of money. I had never heard of the solar, but I think that would be a good deal to try to put that solar on that runway. And if it's only a lease, then should it fall flat, well then it could be torn down and something else could be put up. That's why the solar would probably be an excellent idea, especially if we can get Mr. Hochbruckner to work on it for nothing. So, in reality, it always sounds good to have a mixed use, but in practicality, you're dealing with human beings, and human beings just can't deal with that type of work environment. It's no different that over in Islip, where it used to be Islip Speedway. They used to complain about the noise all the time, and they put an industrial park in on that property. Well, as far as I know, the only thing that went in there was a cookie factory. And guess what? The neighbors still complained, because whether it's the noise of the stock cars that they complained about, now they complain about the trucks, because you're going to have trucks that make noise. They're legal to ride on the road, but you got to deal with the trucks. If it's not trucks and you're using the trains, if you extend the rail, you have to deal. You hear the trains at night. I can hear them on East Main Street when they go down the main line down towards Greenport, and when they go past, I can hear the trains. So, in reality, that sounds great, but it doesn't work. And anybody with common sense knows it doesn't. Thank you.
Thank you. Next.
Good evening, Laurie Downs, Pulaski Street, Riverhead. I'm now a charter member of Sandra Bullock's fan club. I'm really angry at a lot of the things that are going on And one of the things, first off, housing over at EPCAL is the original documentation that was given to the town states no housing. It is exactly what Congressman Hofbruckner had said. It was to generate jobs and revenue for the people that live here. Housing, you know, we just had this $78 million bond with the school district, and the schools are still going to be, some of these elementary schools are still going to be busting. Riley Avenue, which would be at that end, as I see in another 5 years we're going to be doing another bond to give them more. And if you put houses in there, forget about it. The other thing about it is infrastructure. Who's going to pay for this infrastructure? I mean, I sure as heck aren't, and I don't think the town is. I mean, you're looking for a bridge loan. A bridge loan is only going to extend things to when we pay, and I don't believe that we're going to be able to pay in 2 years. And you know, we've been talking about this stuff since 2009, when you all were running, and Mr. Supervisor, you yourself was showing that all this was going to happen, and everything. Well, this is the third time around, and now when we're at the edge of the cliff, now you're running to do something, and I think it's pretty shabby. And I think all those years of bickering and everything was uncalled for. Maybe there should have been some governing, and we wouldn't be where we are today. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Hold on a second. Do you need to take a break? Okay.
Good evening. I'm Ron Hariri from Aquabog. You know I call him like I see him. And I want to just say that this town board is privileged to have members of this community, the environmental community, the business community, and just plain folks that have come here tonight. And you know what? I have not heard a single individual say anything good about this plan. And I think the real problem is that under your watch, Supervisor Walter, you have taken this town to the verge of bankruptcy, and you've created an intolerable, unconscionable situation where your desperation to generate some revenue to avoid Riverhead's fiscal cliff may blind you from acting rationally and listening to your community. So I'm going to urge the board and the consultant to take the time to step back, listen to the thoughts that have been so persuasively articulated here tonight, and do not rush to judgment. You need to consider the infrastructure costs and what the net gain will be to this town before you move forward with this. So please, hold your horses, step back, and give this the thought that it really deserves. Thank you.
Thank you. Next speaker. Feel free to line up.
Good evening. My name is Edgar Goodale, and I'm here to represent my family who owns and operates Riverhead Building Supply. We have, as you know, made substantial investments at EPCAL, and we continue to do so today. We are not in favor of the proposed mixed use in the industrial park because of all of my professional life, I have been chased from residential communities because of my business, and we have willingly moved because of the pressures that have been put on us by residential growing up around us, and we moved from Ostrander Avenue to Pulaski Street to Mill Road, and now we are finally up at EPCAL, and I'm looking down the road and finding myself I might be right back where I started. And I'm not particularly pleased about this particular zoning plan. You recently approved a rehab facility to be built at Carrollton. That will be challenging enough when that is built there, as whoever is running that, if I remember the quote was, "This will be a great, quiet, and peaceful environment for our patients that are here," and that just scares the hell out of me. This is an industrial park. It should remain an industrial park. I have told this administration, and and to be fair, administrations before this, that your luring of industrial companies to come here has been flawed from the beginning. I have talked to numerous people who have come to this town to visualize moving their businesses, to have them come here, and after speaking with various town boards, various town people, cannot run away fast enough. The town is trying to constantly hit a home run here at EBCAL. You need to hit singles. You need to do this smartly. You need to create an annuity that will prepare this town to have a constant flow of income for decades to come. I shudder to think that if you sell all of these lots, of what will happen with those millions of dollars that will suddenly come into the budget, into the town of Riverhead, what will happen with that, and when it's all gone, where will you be, and what will be left? So I urge you, and if my peers in the building industry were here to hear me say that I am opposed to a housing development, they might, they might want to have me a little bit committed. But industrial and residential do not mix. They never have mixed. If you're looking for places for people to live, there are still plenty of places in this town, and there is plenty of land in this town under a current planning, under the major planning that you've had done years ago. And if you want to create more workforce housing, there are many, many things that you can do to entice people to come here, that people can afford to do workforce housing. And if you need to have those explanations, I'd be more than happy to put you in touch on how you can do this, how the town can help to be able to create workforce housing. But if you need workforce housing, that means you need to have jobs. And the only kind of jobs you're going to get that are going to be able to pay for someone to own a home is going to be in an industrial park, not some recreational uses and retail uses up at EBCAL. Thank you.
Thank you.
Sid Bale, Wading River Civic Association. I have two issues, I guess, from the DES that I'd like to get, hopefully later on, clarification on. It's mentioned that in the DEIS that regulations for mixed-use development should address the need for minimizing land use conflicts between potentially conflicting uses, such as residential proximity and industrial uses. Like a lot of statements in the DEIS, they don't seem to go anywhere. You know, there should be regulations. You know, something should be done, but there's not much in the way of answers. Is the town going to make the regulations? Is there going to be some sort of authority or commission, like in Fort Devon, like you know, which has inspired, I guess, you know, people on the town board? I think that's pretty important to know, and I think it's important for us to know this right from the get-go, because I think the initial uses that go in there are going to do a lot to set the tone for what is going to follow. And so, you know, I'd like to get some clarification on that. And one other final point. The point that Dick Amper mentioned early on about the 25,000 job employment level in 2035. I'm not an expert, but you know, just from Googling various points of information, et cetera, I see in Fort Devon the employment level now is 4,000. 4,000 in 2014, and they've been at it for quite a while. And just from my perspective, it seems like 25,000 is not a realistic number. And so I'd like to get some clarification on that. But it's been a very interesting discussion tonight.
Thank you. Next. Does anybody else want to be heard? Yes?
Am I correct that there's public comment tomorrow evening as well?
Public comment is at the planning board for the public hearing on the subdivision application, preliminary subdivision application, and a similar public hearing for input on the amended urban renewal plan. But if there's not anybody else, yeah, folks, line up because you're going to wind up missing your opportunity, and I'm going to close the hearing.
Good evening. I'm Anthony Coates from Riverhead, New York. I'm listening to Congressman Hochbruckner, and I think it's important to just recapture a little bit of the history of this property. I think we're going far afield in what the original intent was. The congressman said that we originally had 2,900 acres there, and all of that was to go to economic development. And over time, that shrunk down to, we sold off part of the core, and we now have about 600 acres under the new plan to develop. So every acre counts here. We've lost a tremendous amount of what was supposed to be the impetus for this region and for this town, so every acre has to count that much more. When you take the 1,000-page study and you take all of the discussion and all of the experts, I would like to call it, let's Columbo this idea. Let's boil it down to sheer small logic. And the sheer small logic is that, as I see it, there are three ways to get paid at EPCAL. One is to collect taxes. Two is the price we're going to get per acre for the land. And three is to create high-quality jobs for our residents. We've already said, and the study confirms, that we're going to have people go there essentially tax-free. So one leg of the stool is gone. Anyone who chooses to pioneer at EPCAL will, in essence, pay no taxes. What are we going to get paid for the land? EPCAL, with all due respect, has all of the amenities right now of Gilligan's Island. There's not a motor car, there's not a single luxury. There aren't roads, there isn't infrastructure, and so someone negotiating with us is going to have us in the disadvantageous position. You know, if you go up the street to Mr. Schulman's golf course at Calverton Links, formerly Calverton Links, land there in a turnkey operation where you just need to mow the grass and you can go in, and where there are buildings and amenities and a golf course and golf carts and a catering facility and a name facility, went for $28,000 an acre. What is this board projecting in their business planning acres are going to sell for at EPCAL? If we put residences at that property, what pressure is going to be on the people there who want to develop a business? You heard a fine member of our business community talk about what pressure the 300 or 400 residents that come there are going to bring to bear to ensure that we don't properly build out this industrial park. And it won't achieve what the original intent was that Congressman Hochbruckner talked about. I'm also deeply troubled by the fact, because I was on that Devens trip, that the words ancillary housing are being thrown around. Ancillary housing is housing for feeder employees of a business. So let's project to the future. Let's assume a Pfizer or a pharmaceutical company comes here, and they need land for their 200 or 300 employees they're going to tote with them, because that's what the study seems to be calling for. How is that developing jobs for the people here in Riverhead? How is that developing the high-paying, white-collar, high-tech jobs that our kids are going to stay in Suffolk County? How is that being developed if someone comes here and imports their workforce? So I'm very deeply troubled by where this study has taken us. I'm very deeply troubled by where the years have taken us. So I think it's time to go back. I know we're on the verge of enacting legislation to call for a bridge loan. I'm troubled by the bridge loan. If we need $4 million to pay our staff as it exists now, aren't we going to need that same $4 million plus the carrying cost of the property plus the increase in salaries next year and the year after and the year after? And isn't the only way that we can get out of paying the minimum on our Visa card, isn't that going to be by developing jobs and selling land? And how quickly is this land going to sell? I'm deeply troubled that a project of this magnitude, a project where every acre counts, is not being thought out the way it should be. And so I urge everyone, go back to the drawing board. I am an optimist. I think that the land that sent men to the moon can certainly be developed in a fashion that can meet what it was originally intended to do. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Next speaker, please.
My name is Craig Dahlgren from River Road in Calverton. I apologize now, my speech is not going to be as well put together as that. Wasn't actually planning on speaking tonight. But I have a few comments basically on the EPCAL redevelopment. Living on River Road, east of the facility and west of Edwards Avenue, I'm probably one of your closest residents to it. So I do have some concerns about it. We hear this term redevelopment of the EPCAL property. I don't see any redevelopment here. I see development. Redevelopment would have been holding on to the initial core that was sold when it was vacated and redeveloping that and opening that back up for business. What we're doing now is full-on development. And I'm scared of the magnitude of it. Traffic is going to be horrendous if we're looking at the full-on 2035, I think was full build if I read it properly. The road that I live on, it was said in the DEIS that can support a much larger volume of traffic. I don't see it at all. As it is now, the traffic is bad. The cars fly down the road. My girlfriend's almost been hit by a Suffolk County sheriff flying down the road, had to dive into the bushes. I've almost been hit by a vehicle checking my mail. My neighbor had a vehicle run up her mailbox onto a road, onto her property, which is also a bus stop, missing a child by probably about 45 seconds to 50 seconds. Luckily, the child was picked up and taken from there. And just last week, we had a vehicle veer off the road, take out a sign, and end up in an embankment along the railroad tracks there. This was all within 50 feet east or west of my property line. I don't see how, it was also said in the DEIS that I believe that a large-scale full build, that we can't support the traffic with the roads that we have now, and I don't see room to expand the roads to do it. River Road cannot handle much more traffic, let alone significant traffic volume upgrades. 25, if you want to create that into another Long Island Expressway, go for it. But you're ruining what Riverhead is. I moved to Riverhead for what it is now. You look at a picture like this, open space, farmland, trees. That's what I came here from Islip. I work in Queens. I drive every day. If there's no, my job isn't available here in Riverhead. I understand you want to create jobs in Riverhead, create money, everything like that, but I don't think flooding the market is the way to do it and giving away land tax-free. It's ridiculous. Instead of developing 600 acres and not taking tax money from those people, why don't we look smaller scale, do it a little bit smarter, and take tax money from those people? Everywhere else, people are doing Hampton Jitney, all these other projects that are going on, people are paying taxes. It's what goes on. Why are we giving it for free? It's so complicated. It's so much more complicated to deal with 600 acres developing it when you could be a little more selective with the businesses that are going on and take the tax money from them. I hit on traffic. That's something that, also the type of businesses that we attract with whatever gets developed, there's different types of traffic that are associated with that. What we should try to avoid is the Monday through Friday commuter traffic. In the DEIS, that was specified as being the highest volumes of traffic associated with office spaces, medical facilities. That's something that we should try to avoid and maybe gear the development towards other businesses that will provide less traffic, such as solar is the hot topic here right now, right? They said that creates little to no traffic. Why don't we work a little bit more towards a project like that? You already have a company operating in EPCAL called Pods. They have a large warehouse, they operate out of there. There's also very little traffic associated with them. The only traffic that they have is their few employees and the guys pulling the trucks in and out with Pods. That's great too. In regards to the solar, another comment on that about trying to get solar on the runway. I think it's a good idea, but and working with the DEC, I think it's also a trade-off. You're not just going to go, there's been a certain amount of acreage that's been agreed on to be developed. You can't just go and ask for more and expect to get it. It's going to come down to a good old-fashioned negotiation. So therefore, look at your map of the subdivision and take a couple parcels that equal the acreage of the runway and propose a trade-off to them. And to me, the properties on the east side of the eastern runway make sense to be the properties traded off because they're totally segregated from the rest of the property. And if those are ever developed, you're going to have more environmental impact. They're going to be more costly to develop in all means, whether it's running electricity, water, sewers, and everything like that. It really doesn't make sense that those properties are there. Propose a trade-off for them and work on that. Just to go and ask for it, I think you're going to get shut down. You know, it's something that you can try if you're really interested in doing solar at the project. In regard to other recreations at EPCAL, I also want to point out how recreation fits into the East End. Like somebody else pointed out, you don't come to Riverhead or even parts of Brookhaven and other towns for business. When you're driving eastbound on the Long Island Expressway, let's start off, if you're driving westbound on the Long Island Expressway and you get out into the ice slips and stuff like that, and there's one of those attraction signs, it is blank. There's a McDonald's sign on it. That's what's on there, okay? When you start heading out east and you get east of William Floyd Parkway, those signs start to spruce up. You get to exit 71, it's full. We have aquariums, we have the skydiving, we have the animal farms, we have all this stuff. That's what people are coming here for. I see it in the summer. There's a lot more people in our town, and that's great. That's what we want. That is bringing the town money. So why don't we work towards bringing more of those people in? You already, you know, with retail, you've already done that. Route 58 is huge now. You have every store out there. You're sucking everybody in from the South Fork, from out east on the North Fork. Why don't you look to do more of that with recreation? And as somebody pointed out, not just selling the land and walking away with the money, and then when that money runs out, figuring out where more money is going to come from. If the town holds on to some of this land and doesn't sell it and creates certain projects that are going to bring long-term revenue, it might be something to look into. Recreation, such as you know, different types of amusement parks, not with rides and stuff like that, but maybe a town-owned like rock climbing walls, you know, volleyball courts. I had a list of them, but just kind of can't find it right now. Zip lines, that's a big thing that's going on now. Ropes course. The town takes a piece of that subdivision, holds it for that, does that, and they charge fees for it. Some of it can be free, or you buy a town sticker every year. You can use volleyball courts, a pool, whatever you want to put there, and then also do other things and charge money for it each time that it's used, like a go-kart track and, you know, other businesses already do. I hit on different types of development. Retail. I don't see where we need more retail. Route 58 has everything that we need, and I can't imagine what other stores that we have coming. We have virtually if you drive west to the crowded towns, there's not a store that they have that we don't have now. And just like somebody else said, you're just going to move retail around. You're not going to create, you know, you're not going to create $200 out of $100. What you're going to do is you're going to take $100 and you're going to turn it into $50 here and $50 here, which I don't think is the wise way to go. And you're going to create more sprawl with it. Route 58, although I was sad to see it become as built up as it is, in hindsight, it is convenient. You can make one trek in and one trek out and get everything that you need. To move to now open up more retail space and possibly lose some of that and move it around, it doesn't make sense. Keep the retail where the retail is. We have enough. We have plenty of retail, everything that we need. Like I said, gearing development towards things that are going to not increase traffic and also not affect environment as much. Groundwater is huge. I read in the DEIS that the Peconic River is the largest groundwater river in New York State. So we need to be careful about what's built there. Solar recreation things, polo fields, those are going to have a minimal impact or no impact on groundwater. I've also heard, because I live on a farm that's actually for sale, I've also heard that there's been interest in fish farms on some properties, particularly the property by my house. You know, that's another one that would probably have a very little impact on groundwater. Noise. don't repeat what's happening at the recycling facility. It's on the website every day. You know, let's not do that. And also, as far as buffers and everything like that go, obviously we had a horrible problem at the Costco site. Let's make sure that the buffers are followed at least what they are, or even more generous than what they are. Let me see if I can come up with anything else here. Basically, I would just like the town to be very careful as to what they do there, because once you put it there, it's not going away. I feel as though trying to rush in and just say, we want to do this, and we want the money right now, is not the right way to do it. I think starting smaller with specific uses on the properties is something that's important too. I just hate to see, you know, like I said, I work in Queens every day. I travel to Queens. And I leave my house at 6:10 in the morning. I'm out there all day, and then I come home in the evening, and it's almost like coming home to a little mini vacation every day. It keeps my sanity. That's the only thing keeping me here on Long Island. I was very close to moving before I got my job. And I just hate to see this town turn into the western towns. I don't think Riverhead realizes what they have in the way of the attraction to the open space. People come out to the North Fork, to the vineyards, to all that stuff, and they come out. I have friends who come out and they say, wow, oh my God, all this open space, you know, everything like that, or you live in the sticks. Now you want to change that, and they're going to be driving by industrial facilities on their way to a vineyard or a farm. You know, it just doesn't fit in with the local area. You know, big box development, I don't see it. I hope that you're careful in what you do with it, and just don't make another Center Reach or Levittown, as it was described. Those towns are absolutely horrible. If anything like that happens here, I assure you, I am leaving Riverhead, because it's not convenient for me for how I work. And I will be, if this town becomes a western town, there's no reason for me to stay here anymore. And you will, I think there's other people that feel like that, and I think you will be also losing some of the residents, and you're going to be losing the identity of what Riverhead is. Don't overdevelop it, and do it wisely, and take your time. And I wish I had more to say, but I kind of wasn't prepared
Thank
for
you.
a speech.
Thank you. Just a minute. I have to give the court reporter a break. How many more people want to speak? Because this is
be real brief.
Hold on. How many more people want to speak? Raise your hands, because that's going to make a difference whether we take a 15-minute break or just wrap it up in 15 minutes. Raise your hands if you want to speak. Okay, I'm taking you at your word. Last speaker. Go ahead.
Vic Pershnowski, 533 Elton Street, Riverhead, New York. I'm also the consultant for United Riverhead Terminals and United Metro, who has a facility, as you know, in the EPCAL, commonly known as the Berman Park. I'm here tonight to speak out against the inclusion of residential development on the property. One of the aspects that I think most of the people in the town of Riverhead, Jody certainly knows, and I know the board members, that we have a very active industrial park there right now. And I don't know Mr. Goodale's, I was out in the hall, I didn't hear him speak, but I would hope that he would not be in favor of residential development on the property. I think it's totally incompatible with the type of uses there, especially if a lot of the people that have businesses on the property and potential new businesses come in, because there are some big buildings for sale, it would definitely be a deterrent for future expansion of that site. Also, little known and little discussed is that, and I think I'm right on this, Bob, the code was changed about 10 years ago, and that 10,000-foot runway is available to be used by any property owner or tenant on the property, as long as they get a runway use agreement from the town of Riverhead for as an accessory use to their business. And that's an important step if you're going to try to bring in these dream jobs. And certainly if the runway is going to remain active, and right now the only tenant we have on there is Skydive Long Island, that residential development is totally incompatible. Years ago, when the Grumman Corporation, when I was a kid, they were operating here, they used to test those engines 24 hours a day. They'd run them all night. The thing is that in the Timber Park communities, most of the people that lived in the Timber Park communities actually worked at the Grumman facility. So they wouldn't complain or say, hey, the noise is bothering me. That was part of their existence. Today, there's a lot of new people working there, and that would be an incompatibility where people would call up and say, hey, why are they testing these engines at 3 o'clock in the morning? And believe me, they tested those engines 24 hours a day, because I lived in downtown Riverhead, and you could hear faintly the engines. But nobody complained because they were employing 2,000 people. This is an industrial park, and I'm really not going to comment too much on the proposal that's before us today, although it's much of the same that we've had before, except that I'm 100% for the solar on the 7,000-foot runway. Mr. Amper sitting next to me, he remembers a meeting we had in the supervisor's office when I voted for the greatest environmental law that was ever passed in the state of New York, the Pine Barrens Act, and we made an agreement that the environmentalists were to kind of back off the inside of this property, not that everything would be subject to review, but it would not be an excessive where we would handcuff the future development of this property, because we gave up the 450 acres to the west as part of our arrangement for us to vote for the Pine Barrens Act. And this is one of the excessives that chickens have come home to roost, to put grass on the 7,000-foot runway. By the way, to take the runway off from my consulting job when I represented the racetrack, that is millions and millions of dollars to take up the cement on the 7,000-foot runway. So it's not an easy thing to say, well, let's just rip up the runway if you got $3 or $4 million. So I hope that the plan is not going to include residential development. I think that's a tragic mistake. I think you got to remember, you have people that have invested into the town of Riverhead, are employing people. Riverhead Building Supply just built another 500,000 million square foot building there, and I think it would really restrict the future development of the existing industrial park. Forget about what's being proposed in the subdivision now. So I just hope you take that into account and you make that change. Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, I'm going to close the public comment portion of the hearing and leave it open for written comment until September 30th. Thank you, everybody, for coming. Appreciate it. And we'll take a 5-minute break to let everybody break down. Thank you, everybody, for your comments.
Extending the comment period, Sean?
Oh, okay.
I make a motion, we close the town board meeting and open the CDA meeting. So moved.
And seconded?
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Woodman.
Coming off the floor. Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
The CDA meeting is now
George,
open.
that's coming off the floor. This is coming off the floor to extend the town's resolution.
Do I have it?
Is Anne Marie here? Because
Yes, there she is.
Anne Marie, are these CDA resolutions or both?
I prepared them as a town board resolution.
Okay, they're both.
In the same one, Sean, they're just in like 5.
Why do I have? Oh, one is for the. One is. Oh, sorry.
I put a copy for each of you in there.
Did you give one to Diane?
No, I just
There's
have
an
them all
extra
to you.
one for her.
Okay, so I have really no idea. I'm giving them all back to you. Just give them all back, because I have no idea. There's 2 separate resolutions here. I don't know which ones are which. Give them all back. Give them all back.
Now,
Because we have to extend time to answer this. We have to.
CDA?
I didn't
Just-
see any time frames on that.
What? They're to extend the time frame to answer the impact statement till the 30th.
It's all the same resolution, and it says to be extended until
Okay,
September 30th.
but there's 2 resolutions? That's why
No,
I'm not
they're
understanding.
all one. It's one of the same. So she made copies for everybody.
There's no CDA resolution.
Correct.
There's only town board resolution.
I thought-
Okay.
The town board
Okay.
acting as a legislative body and as a
Okay.
governing body.
So this is going to be,
The same one.
this is going to be a resolution to take off the floor to extend the time. I don't know that we had to do
That's
it,
a
but we
new
did.
one,
Okay,
Diane.
that's fine. I thought you
This
said
is
there
the
were
brand
2,
new
and I'm
one on
saying
the
there's
floor.
not 2 here.
Right.
Okay, so,
So we're in the CDA meeting?
we're in the
So we've
CDA
got to
meeting.
do the table CDA resolution 15.
Right.
There she is right there.
Okay, I guess so make a motion to untable resolution 15?
So moved.
Okay, resolution, this is a motion to untable resolution 15. Giglio?
So moved.
Can Can I make a comment on that? If we could amend that?
Amend what?
This resolution 15?
Well, we have to take it off.
I'll take it off the floor and
to
I'll comment on it,
amend.
okay.
Yeah.
You gonna second it?
I second it.
Moved and seconded as to take resolution 15 off the floor, and then we'll have conversation about resolution 15.
Giglio?
No.
Gabrielson?
Yes.
Wooten?
Yes, on table.
Dunleavy?
Yes.
Walter?
Yes.
Okay,
All right, is there comment on, it's off the floor? Sorry, go ahead.
should I read the?
It's untabled.
Okay.
Okay, don't read it. Is there discussion on the motion?
There's one discussion here, and I don't know if it's in here. As far as if we did go for this, we have to take $1 million out, say,
Mhm.
and it would be your authority to take it out. Would that need the approval of the town board?
No,
Or
they
put
took that whole paragraph out, right, on the authority of the town board for the drawdown on the loan. That was, the whole resolution got changed by our attorney, so it would,
I think it may give a comfort level to some of the board members if
So,
they would have to get approved by them,
by who?
the town board.
No, he says no.
no, it's, the whole thing got changed in the direction of the financial administrators.
I brought it to Carol's attention, the supervisor's office this afternoon,
I think that may be the difference too.
that it wasn't in there.
Well,
The direction of
And
the
she told me
town
that she
board.
would tell
So,
Jill and
okay,
Helen
so
about
what you have to do is change this resolved on page 3 at the direction of the town board. The financial administrator is authorized to prepare and deliver such reports that may be required by the lender related to the,
I just-
loan.
I
That
just
sounds
think
good.
with
On the direction of the
this
town board by
15, we're
resolution,
kicking
the
everything
financial
down the road, and next year we're gonna do another.
Well, we're gonna vote on it and see whether it happens.
But I'm just saying, if we put it, I'm just the language, we put it, it can't be taken down without a majority of the town board. So
Right.
this year, we may take $1 million, after that, we say we're not taking anything.
Yeah, but
after
next
that.
year you have to take more.
Well, no, you don't have to take any if you don't
The $4
wanna.
million is not going away.
No, but you don't, he can't take it without, or anyone can't take it without the town board's.
Okay, so at the
wanna
direction
take it
of
at
the, we're doing this on the fly, town, Emery, you have a
So
copy of
it gives
this?
us a lot of control over it at that point, John.
The last page,
You know what I'm
first
saying?
resolved on the
If
last
we don't like
page.
the way it's going, we could just stop it when we
Right.
need it.
I agree.
I think that could be,
Town board, because I'm part of the town board, but not the council, so that works. Does that work for you, Anne Marie? At the, dir-
I'll add another resolve, then
I don't even think you have to add a resolve. It's just that upon the direction of the town board, the financial administrator is authorized to prepare and deliver reports that may be required by the lender related to the loan, prepare accounting records, transfer of proceeds reports on behalf of the lender. I mean, it doesn't specifically say, it doesn't really address drawdown.
No, so if I could add a resolve that says that any act to draw down upon the loan shall require approval of the town board.
Okay, so resolved, so leave supervisor where it is. So it'll say that upon the direction of the supervisor, that's the reports, and then resolved, what did you say, Marie?
Resolve that any act to draw down monies on the loan shall require approval of the town board.
I would rather it say shall be by resolution of the town board.
Well,
The town board can only approve anything by resolution, so I'll add that language.
require a town board resolution then?
Resolved, any act to draw down monies of the loan shall be by resolution of the town board.
Shall require a resolution. That'll be interesting if we run out of money and can't pay the bills.
Okay.
So the town board would have control over it. I
Yeah.
think it should give a little comfort level to,
Yeah.
not that you agree with it, but I think it's gotta give us comfort level. as
No,
a board.
I don't disagree with you, but
Right,
it'd be
okay.
interesting if you didn't do it and we ran out of money and couldn't pay the bills, but that's the whole reason to do this. It's not, this is what I would, some have looked at as a standby letter of credit. It's not my intention to ever use this.
Right, but it's an option. Yeah,
But it's
there.
an absolute option to use it if we don't. My intention is that we're gonna balance the budget, but. All right, so, with that amendment, do we have somebody move this motion, this resolution?
Resolution number 15, CDA Resolution number 15 authorizes Town of Riverhead Community Development Agency to incur indebtedness an amount not to exceed $6 million to be secured by a mortgage on property known and described as EPCAL, and authorizes the supervisor to execute a loan agreement, note, and mortgage or similar agreements in connection therewith on behalf of the Riverhead Community Development Agency and such other documents as required in connection with such loan and mortgage for the benefit of the Town of Riverhead Community Development Agency and the Town of Riverhead.
So moved.
George, you second?
Oh, and seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio?
No.
Gabrielson?
I would just like to say that I think this is a tool and an option that we should have there, because I've been working on the budget and I've spoken to the supervisor, some of my ideas, and Councilman Giglio has some, and we have a 4.1 million approximately hole to fill, and just working different scenarios, my particular scenario is up to 3.1 million, but we would be able to, between cuts and revenue, so we could be like $1 million short.
We're 2.2 short,
At this
2.4,
point.
2.2 short.
Right.
Basically, pretty much everything you have there, some things added, some things subtracted.
And we may add some with the other council people, so we may get that down. So I think it's an option that we should have there, because I really think some good things are ready to happen at EPCAL. I know we had a lot of depressing talk out there today, but I'd rather be an optimist, a true optimist, say it's going to happen. And I really feel it's not just a subdivision. Most people aren't aware on a radar screen that we have an energy park that is like that close to happening. And without revealing the numbers, because there's conversation going back and forth with PSEG, it looks like it may be a great chance that we get this in December. So I'm just trying to fill the hole until we get there, $1 million or two. So I think it's something that we should put as an option. So I would vote yes,
Wooten?
as amended.
Okay, yes, okay. Wooten?
What?
Animal shelter vote?
Oh,
Sorry,
no,
we
I'm
did that right.
I'm sorry I wasn't here. I'm sorry this got tabled because I wasn't here.
You were sick and we didn't want you here.
I was seriously sick, and then I took a vacation. So I've had a lot of time to think about this back and forth, and I realize Riverhead's land rich, so we do have a lot of assets on the table that aren't tangible. But after several, a lot of consideration, you think of your personal finances on a very personal level. I mean, if you're short on your monthly bills, we take the job, or we cut back on our expenses, but we never consolidate our credit cards and then not cut them up. So it scares me. I think the energy park certainly is a good chance that's going to come to fruition. If that does, we're not going to need this anyway. So as positive as you are that that's going to happen, I am too, to the point that I think this is, although it makes sense because we're land rich, I don't think it's a good idea. I just really, fundamentally, it bothers me to borrow money to meet our daily expenses, and that's basically what we're doing. We're borrowing money to pay down debt. We're going into debt to pay off debt. I think there's a better way to do it. This board, despite all the negative comments you might hear, has done a lot in the last 4 years to cut spending, to take a $16 million deficit that was here in 2008 and bring it down to 11 and a half or 12 now. The debt's slowly going down. We'll see the realization for that in a couple of years when the debt servicing goes down even further. And we'll continue to work along those veins. I think there's a more prudent way to do this, and I realize it's going to hurt a little bit, but I see the end in sight, and borrowing money to pay off debt and going into debt to do that is just not sensible to me, so I'm going to vote no.
Dunleavy?
Borrowed money, just kicking everything down the road, and this $4 million is not gonna go away this year. We're still gonna have it next year, and what's gonna happen next year, we're still gonna borrow money next year, because we have to borrow to get our budget down. People have been coming up to me and saying, don't borrow money. We don't want more debt. I went to a restaurant out in Southold last week, and some stranger I didn't even know came over to me, introduced himself to me from Riverhead, and says, I go along with you, don't borrow any money. And that's what people have been saying to me. So I can't kick it down the road anymore. I have to vote no.
Walter?
I vote yes. It's a pretty difficult decision to be, for the town to be in, but I share George's tremendous optimism for EPCAL.
Me too.
And I feel that if you whether we deliver a 7, a 9, or 12% tax increase, what happens is that tax never goes away. We can say it's going away, you can say the residents are getting it back. When's the last time Uncle Sam or the Riverhead or the county ever gave the tax money back? Never happened, and it won't happen in this case. And I do feel we're on the precipice of something great. I look at this hearing that we had this evening, and there were no insurmountable obstacles in this hearing for the scoping, for the draft generic environmental impact statement. And for that reason, I'm even more optimistic that we're going to get something to happen at EPCAL. I know my vote doesn't count. I don't take it lightly, but I am not the always the optimist, but I am in this case, and I think that we could do this, because now the alternative now really.
And I'm sorry my vote's contrary to yours, but I have the same feelings you have. So.
And I think the town board believes that, but I was willing to take the risk, so I vote yes, but I understand it doesn't matter now.
So the resolution is not adopted, and that completes the business of the CDA.
Okay, can I get a motion?
I make a motion, we close the CDA meeting and reopen the town board meeting. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
The town board meeting is now reopened.
Okay, there's no reason to vote on 589. I don't expect that outcome to be any different. So let's just untable and withdraw 588 and 589. 588 was one that is replaced with, yeah, I guess that was 622.
I make a motion that we untable resolution 588 and 589. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
I'm gonna vote no, because I like one more shot at the apple, 589. I won't bite at the apple.
All right, so you want to untable just 588?
Well, you got on table both.
Oh, untable both, yeah, go ahead.
Yes.
Vote untable both.
Okay, so George is a no. Wooten.
Yeah, I want on table, yes.
Dunleavy.
Why would untable?
Yes.
Walter.
Okay, yes, we'll untable them.
Okay,
So we'll withdraw 588, is that agreed upon by the board?
Right, I think I'd make a motion to withdraw 588.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded as to withdraw.
Okay, so what are we withdrawing?
588.
Okay. you guys
589, we're gonna
moving
vote on
too
it.
fast.
588 is the
Okay.
tax levy, to
That's-
raise the tax levy.
That was replaced by
Right, so it's
622.
it's back there
Another
again.
one in
Got
there.
it. Okay,
All right, where are we?
so we withdrew.
So 588 and
589.
589 were untabled, and now we're up to 588
To withdraw.
to withdraw. Okay.
Moved and seconded.
I make a motion, we withdraw resolution 588.
Okay, do you have a second on that? Because I think it was
Second.
seconded. Moved
Yeah,
and
I
seconded
think-
as to withdraw 588.
We're not moving
Okay.
on.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution 588 is withdrawn.
All right, let's
Resolution.
call 589.
589.
Authorize the town of Riverhead Community Development Agency to incur indebtedness in the amount not to exceed $6 million to be secured by a mortgage on property known and described as EPCAL. The town of Riverhead to guarantee such loan incurred by the town of Riverhead Community Development Agency and authorize the supervisor to execute a loan agreement, note, and mortgage or similar agreements in connection thereof on behalf of the Riverhead Community Development Agency and execute a guarantee of the town of Riverhead to guarantee such loan and such other documents as required in connection with such loan. Mortgage guarantee for the benefit of the town of Riverhead Community Development Agency and the town of Riverhead. So moved.
Second it.
Moved and seconded. Vote, please.
Giglio.
No.
Gabrielson.
No, I'd like to say, it's easy to say no, vote it down. But what's the solution? Does the town board willing to have break the tax cap?
No,
You
I
willing
have
to
a
hand
plan
up?
that I shared
Or
with
some of
him
the other-
and you.
All right, you're one
Never
person.
shared it with
You
me.
never shared it
I'm
with
the
me
one
either.
that
I did when
You
you
didn't share it
pulled
with
me
me.
out of the
But what's the
landmarks
solution?
meeting last
What's the
Monday and I
solution
went
here?
into
That
your
was not
office.
a-
I'm just leave this as an option. If we make cuts and we fell $500,000 short, that's what we had to take from here. It gives you an option. You only can cut so far. But
We
what's the
cannot
solution? Are you gonna pass on a 10% tax
If we
increase?
have to, if
this
that's
gives you
the
option not
course of
to.
action, and we have to
Well, I
do
never
it,
would.
we have to do it.
So you'd rather vote in favor of a 10% or whatever tax increase that'll never go away,
Well, we
like Sean
can't
pointed
keep
out?
kicking this down
We're
the road.
not. This is an
Next year
option.
it'll be another $4 million.
But I think we're all working as a board towards a solution. Apparently, Councilman Giglio, I know Sean's been working, I've been working on it, and we're getting towards that goal. We may be a little short, but at least we're working towards something. You break the tax cap and pass off 10% increase. What's up with that? It's never going away.
Well,
This is leaving us the option. We could be $500,000 short, but at least we have the option.
What are we
If
gonna-
if we get with the $500,000, we're gonna lay off what?
What are we gonna
10
do?
more
What are we
people?
gonna do next year? No.
Okay.
George, what are we gonna do next year?
What do you mean, what are we gonna
Well,
do?
we're gonna have $4 million next year. What are we gonna do with it?
I really truly believe we're going down the right path. We've been going on this path for 2-3 years, and all of a sudden people are jumping off board. I think even an energy park could be a big thing. Why is nothing going on? Why did you vote for all these studies and everything in the last 3 years, and you're suddenly, everyone seems to be
Well,
abandoning
yes,
that
but
hope?
nothing's gonna take hold in 1 or 2 years.
Maybe.
Maybe.
Well,
Well, I believe it will. I believe it will.
Do I want to give the taxpayers of Town of Riverhead a maybe? No, I don't.
Well, I don't want to give them a tax, I don't want to give them a tax increase either, 10%.
See?
That's worse than a maybe.
Well,
Well, maybe 10, no, I'm giving you 10%.
Well, that's the point, John, is maybe it'll happen, and this allows that maybe to stay open, but you close that
You close
maybe,
the door.
you're
There's
just
no
giving
option.
them the
It's just-
10%
it's
tax
just-
increase, and that's okay. I mean, I've said for a long
It's-
time, that's
I
the
live in the
easy,
town of Riverhead.
easy way to,
I mean,
easiest thing to do.
But we've been working hard on the budget.
I'm included.
We've been
We
working,
have to
and
work hard.
we've
We
got
have to work
numbers,
hard.
we're closing that 4 million up. We're not there yet, but we're getting there.
All right.
I just don't want to be a little bit short.
Let's
All right, so
continue
just,
the vote.
okay, which is back to the vote. I'm saying
Okay,
is,
let's
she's a no.
continue.
Just want to leave the option on there. We don't have to take it. We've given you the right not to give it to the supervisor. You, by changing the code, the resolution,
costing
right now,
us-
he can come to you and say, I want 2 million, you could say no. You got the
To
option.
get
Let's
this line
leave the
of credit,
option
it's
open.
costing us more money.
No.
Yes,
Anyway.
it is.
All right, let's
We have to
continue.
pay the bank.
Let's continue
All right,
the vote.
So my
please.
comeback is, this is just for the big thinkers. So I'm voting yes.
Wow, that was an insult, George.
That's it.
Well, I just got insulted from him.
Okay, let's continue the vote.
I didn't insult him.
You didn't do
Jim,
that
be
to
a
us,
big
George,
thinker.
did you?
Go ahead.
Jim, be a big
I'll let
thinker.
you talk.
You know, we have to have more consideration. George, that was quite an empowered speech, but if we're doing 500,000 and we borrow $500,000, take a loan out, which we'll pay back at a certain rate, so 600,000 back or whatever, and we don't, the energy park doesn't happen, and EPCAL stuff doesn't happen, and we don't sell property, well then we're 11, 10, 12, whatever, million and a half next budget time. So I don't see, although I see it as a bridge and I see it as a help
It's a
now,
standby letter of credit.
but that's still a liability on the town records. It's still there. It's still out there. You know, it's gonna affect bond rate, it's gonna affect everything. It's still a liability whether you touch it or not, it's there.
Jim, this is not gonna be helpful to the bond rating, I can assure you, but
I-
we're not bonding any
If we're
money
within a-
because we've been very frugal.
With all these cuts, we have been.
We haven't bonded
And
anything
I
in
have
4 years.
complete confidence
Well,
that
should say that.
we will get over this
11.
hump. And, no, I don't wanna pierce the 2% cap, but if it has to be 4%.
You know, there's something else
it
to
is.
think about this, John, James. If we pierce the cap this year, the town residents will not get the benefit when we put together a plan for saving money next year. They will not get the benefit of the rebate from the state of New York.
I realize that.
And that is a big deal. Once we pierce the cap, the residents of this town do not get that rebate.
But we're just putting more debt, and I'm sorry.
You're right, John.
But
You are right. This
but
is a tough decision.
It's a
You're
tough
right.
decision, and
But you
and making the landfill a separate line item where people can see that going down, bill to bill to bill to bill, eventually that will come off. When that comes off, it comes off.
Yes, but you won't get, the
And if-
residents won't get the benefit of the
I know that-
rebate check, and you know the tax increase is never going away. And this
Yeah, but
town should be proud.
But
that-
you're looking at, if you're looking at a 6% increase, you're looking at $100 a year, you know, in addition to what you're paying now. For $100 a year to have a flat and level, and to live here, I mean, I don't wanna go into what the taxpayers get for their town portion of their tax bill. Let's not look
I
at the
know,
whole
but somebody
tax
asked that question, and I
This-
was like, whew.
For the benefit you
This
give
is-
them, your town portion of your tax bill, this town does a pretty damn good job. Their recreation programs, their senior programs, their garbage pickup, the beaches, you name it, you get a pretty good bang for your buck for your town taxes. And yeah, I realize that nobody wants to pay extra taxes, but, you know, when you see a $75 million bond go through the schools, and you see a $124 million budget for the schools, and everybody comes here and squawks about their taxes, I don't quite get it, maybe because we're more beatable, they beat us up because we're paid, I guess, and not volunteer, but the bottom line is, I don't want to pierce the tax cap either, but I don't want to go into debt to pay down debt, so
But-
I'm gonna stick to my guns on this thing. Sorry.
Dunleavy.
I'm not gonna give another big speech. I've listened to all the speeches.
Thank you, the court reporter's
I've
very
listened to all the
excited.
speeches, I've listened to all the speeches on the town board, that's gonna be tonight, and, I have to stick by what I said. No kicking it down the road, I vote no.
Walter.
George, it was a valiant effort.
You know, and I
Hey.
appreciate that, I really do appreciate it.
Yes.
I wish I had more time to talk to you about it, but I don't.
Resolution
Okay, so let's-
589 is not adopted.
No, it's not. Let's
Um,
continue on with 610.
Resolution 610.
Riverhead Sewer Treatment Plant Upgrade Budget Adjustment, so moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 611.
The general fund budget adjustment, so moved.
And seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 612.
General Fund Police Budget Adjustment, so moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 613.
Riverhead Sewer Fund Budget Adjustment, so moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 614.
Authorize attendance of assessor at seminar, so moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
This is money that gets reimbursed to us after she takes this class, yes.
We're getting reimbursed?
Yep.
Yes.
Subsidized by the state of New York, okay.
Gabriel-
Yes.
Yes. Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes, it
Wa-
will be reimbursed by the state of New York, so I vote yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 615.
It's authorization of publication of a notice to amend the CDBG program, so moved.
And seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
I don't remember discussing this at work session.
We did discuss it.
I sent this to everybody on Friday. We actually discussed it like a year ago for this particular year, and then it never got noticed. It just came up and realized that
But all we're doing is taking that out of one fund and putting it into another fund,
right, for that particular
for this particular one, right?
Okay.
Okay,
with, a new.
yep.
Do you remember the budget resolution that came from?
I know exactly where it came from, yeah.
Yep.
Yep.
So that's where this actually,
Yes.
From home improvement, we're moving into to pedestrian safety improvements. That sounds good.
All right, where are we on
Okay.
this, Jay? Did we move and second?
Moved and seconded.
Seconded. We're ready for
Moved and
vote.
seconded, vote please.
Okay. Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
No.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 616.
Authorize Nelson Pope and Voorhees LLC, NPV, to move forward with submission of WSRR designation amendment. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
I've been working very closely with Nelson and Pope and Chris Kempner to get this Wild Scenic Recreational line amended. I think they're perfect for it. This is covered by a New York State grant, so it doesn't cost the taxpayers or the Riverhead taxpayers any money. It costs all the taxpayers of the state of New York money. So I'll vote yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes, this will benefit the town of Riverhead, and the taxpayers and the ecology, so I vote yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 617.
Classifies action, claims lead agency, and determines significance of special permit of Theodore Cohen and calls public hearing. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
What does this mean, significance? Is it gonna be type 1? Or no?
No,
It's unlisted,
it's unlisted action.
first results.
Okay, yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes, for public hearing.
Wooten.
Oh, public hearing, yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter. Resolution adopted. Resolution 618.
Grant special use permit petition of Chernoff Realty Medical Building. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 619.
Accepts the retirement of a principal account clerk. So moved.
And seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
I'd like to thank Janet Griffin for all the years of service. Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yeah, I'm really gonna miss Janet. She's a very hard worker and a diligent worker. But I vote yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 620.
Adopts a local law to add a new chapter 98A of the Town Code of the Town of Riverhead entitled Drop-Off Bins. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes, this will help clean up the town with these bins and the clothing coming out of them, so I vote yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 621.
Adopts a local law to amend chapter 101 entitled Vehicles and Traffic of the Riverhead Town Code. Stop and yield intersections, railroad crossings, parking fields, Griffin Avenue, and Lincoln Street. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes, I'd like to thank the traffic safety for being so diligent looking into this, and yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes, I hope those will cut down the accidents we have at that intersection. So I vote yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 622.
Authorizes the town clerk to publish and post a public notice to consider adopting a local law to override the tax cap levy limit established by and set forth in Article 2, 3C of the General Municipal Law. So moved.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
No.
Gabrielson.
Looks to me like some of the board members are looking, this is their solution. It's definitely not mine, so I'm voting no.
Wooten.
It's not my solution, but borrowing money to pay down debt is stupid.
And this is even stupider.
So,
Is this such a word?
it's not even a word.
All right, well, it is now. We can add the stupidest too if you want.
This is calling for a public hearing?
Yes.
Yes.
Shut up.
I vote yes for the public
Dunleavy.
hearing.
Thank you. Walter.
I'm not voting for this, and so here's your problem, town board. I guess you better start setting up some really intensive meetings on Thursdays, because nobody, except George gave me any kind of written, and George gets us to about $2.5 million. Jody gave me a revenue stream we didn't know about that was really 160, not 320. I can't get there from here. And you all didn't vote for that increase or the standby letter of credit, but you didn't have the guts to vote for the tax increase, and I'm not gonna be left holding the water for the town board, so I will deliver you on September 30th, a balanced budget. You are not gonna like what it looks like. You guys are gonna have to, my guess is, spend long hours trying to figure out how to change it, because you just left me, you didn't follow through with what you started with, and I'm not gonna get left holding the bag, so be prepared. I would, I guess, block out, like Wednesdays every day, because you can't do it on Thursdays, because we have regular work session, or pick a day, have the town council coordinator give a day that you can spend 8 hours a day, or at least as long as it takes, because you guys got a lot on your plate to balance this budget. I will give you a balanced budget, though, that I promise. No,
So you're voting no.
I'm voting no.
Resolution not adopted.
It's not a game, and some of the board members think this is a game.
No, it's not a game.
It's
I
not,
got
you
mine.
know something, you wanna insult us. It's not a game.
No, I'm not.
So you
Not you.
present us with a
Not
balanced
you.
budget,
Not you.
and we will talk about the budget when we get it, okay?
Not you.
Resolution
It's not a
623.
game.
Did you say 623?
I did say 623.
Well, that says adopts a local law to amending chapter 47 entitled Bays and Creeks of the Riverhead Town Code. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 624.
Adopts a local law amending chapter 107 entitled Tidal and Freshwater Wetlands of the Riverhead Town Code. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 625.
Adopts a local law amending Chapter 12 entitled Coast Erosion Hazard Areas of the Riverhead Town Code. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes, sorry.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 626.
To authorize the supervisor to execute an intermunicipal agreement with Riverhead Central School District to provide mutual aid and assistance during disasters renewal for 2014, and that's for the use of the school during the disaster. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 627.
Accept the donation of ladders from Costco for the use by the town fire marshal's office. So moved.
And seconded.
Our guys are good, aren't they?
Is it a 17-inch ladder as opposed to 17?
These are little giant Mega
I
Max
think-
17-inch
yeah,
ladders.
Yeah.
17-inch
I
ladder.
think it's a 17-foot ladder.
All right, lads, that's it.
17-inch ladder, you probably wear
Okay,
platform
so we
shoes.
will correct that. Okay.
I was just looking at it going, wait a minute.
2-inch ladders.
Good catch,
I
Bob.
guess our fire marshals were doing some shopping in Costco. Okay, did we move and second it? I'm sorry.
Yes, Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes, it was
Dunleavy.
Yes, and I want to thank Costco for donating
17-inch
these
ladders?
17-foot ladders to our fire marshal's office.
Walter.
Yes, thank you, Costco.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 628.
Rescinds revocation and conditionally restores taxi cab business license, and that's day and night taxi and limo, Inc. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded.
Just one change on this. Although I had hoped to have a stipulation actually executed, I don't. I did circulate one after the discussion on Thursday at the town board where the question came up with respect to what would happen at the 6-month review. And that amendment was made to the proposed language so that it was understood that so long as the applicant is in compliance with the representations made at the hearing on the appeal, it would be extended. There would be no tack-on period of time, which is what you discussed, and that in the event he fails to adhere to terms and conditions or there's further problems, the board is free to then take whatever actions necessary. I will,
Can we amend that to say that?
well, I'd like to amend it, and I did speak to counsel who has agreed to the sum and substance of it. He had no objection. He's indicated to me he's going to have it signed and back to me by the morning. I know his client's here, and I know that it's been discussed with him, so it would be subject to that agreement being executed, so.
No, but there were a few owners of day and night taxi. There are, right?
Correct.
So this should say that they purchased day and night on July 9th, that they had no interest in day and night, that this was their first venture.
Well-
Because if one of the owners did own it prior to, and we find out that he owned it, then,
It's a corporation that owns it. The shareholders are. of an
okay, then it
interest in
should
the
say
corporation, so-
that the corporation
Right.
that purchased day and night.
Well, let's talk about the singular, whereas Muhammad A. Gondal testified as follows. He testified, and it would be he.
That's correct. I was
So that
going
would be
through his
correct.
testimony.
It's his testimony.
Right.
So it is proper.
No, but it says that he had no interest in day and night, but he also said that he had two partners.
Well, his testimony was, it's repeating it.
But it doesn't say that the two partners didn't have an interest.
Well, that would have to be somewhere else, but he, you know.
There was one other partner.
Okay, listen, are you gonna amend your, resolution, George, just as he stated? Will you amend your resolution as to
Yeah, what I was
Well, what did you-
suggesting is that at the
Well,
the
she
last
added another
whereas-
change, you want it amended. She wants a plural in there.
Yeah, or just,
I don't think it did, because it's talking about his testimony, it'd be he, so it would be
Yeah.
he after his name, right? You wouldn't have to change that to
No.
they, right?
I don't think we
It was
have to change it.
testified, it says that he testified in some
Right.
of the
He did.
substance, so
Right,
it was the
so
sum and
it's him.
substance of
And he
his
did.
testimony.
Right, so
Is
that's
what
it.
it makes reference to.
Right, so it should be correct.
However, what should change is that it says a stipulation has been executed. It should say a proposed stipulation has been exchanged between the town of Riverhead and Day and Night. And then on the first resolved, therefore be it resolved, it should, at the very end of that paragraph, subject to and conditioned upon a stipulation being executed between the parties.
Okay.
And then on the next one, it talks about the ratifies the stipulation, wouldn't be ratifying because it hasn't been signed yet. It would say hereby authorizes the supervisor to execute a stipulation in substantially the same form as exchanged by the parties.
Yep.
So if that's all
Okay.
acceptable.
Yep.
Okay, so I'll move it as amended.
Okay.
A second.
Moved and seconded as amended.
Giglio.
I'm gonna vote no because I'm not comfortable with the language.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten. Dunleavy.
Yes,
Walter.
as amended.
Yes?
Yes, I'm a yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 629.
Declares certain benches to be surplus property and authorizes the donation thereof. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
These are the excess benches we have down at the EPCAL property, right?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah, they were gonna donate to the fire department, so I'd vote yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yeah, the Manorville Fire Department takes care of EPCAL, almost 80% of it. We had some excess benches that were donated to us by Tanger Outlet, and we're gonna donate 3 benches to the Manorville Fire Department. I vote yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 630.
Authorizes, I'm looking at it, authorizes co-sponsorship with Riverhead Business Improvement District Management Association Incorporated and approval of the agreement with St. George Living History Productions Incorporated regarding an event entitled the Edgar Allan Poe Festival. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Did we get all the numbers? I missed the last work session. Did we get all the things we were looking for? Somebody-
Yeah, we did.
Dan
Yeah.
said there was, so you discussed it?
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah.
It's good, okay, yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
I think this is gonna be a great, weekend in the town of Riverhead. So I vote yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 631.
It ratifies the appointment of an interpreter for the police department and justice court. So moved.
And seconded?
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
See?
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 632.
Grants Peconic Management Group LLC, exploitation grading permit is provided by Chapter 62 of the Riverhead Town Code. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Was this discussed also last week?
No, we didn't,
Oh, okay, because I don't know if I missed that.
no, we didn't. But they're removing 400 cubic yards of soil, and they're gonna give us $800.
But do we know where it's coming from? It's,
$2 a yard, so.
You guys, this was at work session, and then Jody said that she had gotten back to whatever her questions were, and she was okay with that.
Yep.
This is income, we're gonna lower the budget.
$800 worth.
so there's a letter. So
Every
our
little bit
engineering, this
helps.
has all been accounted for, there won't be no holes there or anything.
Okay, so I seconded it, right?
Yep.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
I think this needs a little more discussion, so I'm abstaining.
Abstain. Okay. Wooten.
Yes. Yes.
Yes. Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 633.
Authorizing waiver of 30-day notification required by the New York State Liquor Authority. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yeah, this is still in another empty store in the hamlet of Wading River, and, I vote yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 634.
approves extension of security posted by Campo Brothers in connection with the subdivision titled Cedar Cove Riverbed and Drainage Improvements. So move.
I'll second.
Moved and
And I have a
seconded.
question.
Oh.
Okay, Bank of Smithtown is no longer. It is now the People's United Bank. Shouldn't that be changed? It says here,
Well, it is a Bank of Smithtown irrevocable letter of credit, because that's what it was drawn on in 2009. Bank of Smithtown was still
at
alive,
that
I
time,
believe.
but we're extending it to the Bank of Smithtown.
I don't know how Bank of Smithtown, yeah, you're right, it should be People's Credit, shouldn't it?
It should be People's United Bank. They bought Bank of Smithtown.
Well, they've been waiting a long time to do it. I don't mind doing it if we have to change it,
Yeah,
Bob, come back and amend it.
can we amend it? Let's approve it.
Knowing we
with a
got it.
with a possibility of amendment to the correct bank. Is that okay, Bob?
That's fine.
Okay. I move it with the possibility of correcting it to the correct bank, when we do our research on the change of name. So move.
Second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 635.
Approves the Chapter 90 application of Survival Race LLC for a 5K obstacle course and mud run September 27th and September 28th, 2014. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
This is at 4H?
4H stuff.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 636.
Authorize town clerk to publish and post a public notice for a local law to consider amendment to chapter 106 entitled Waterways of the Riverhead Town Code. So moved.
Seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted. Resolution 637.
Authorizes town clerk to publish and post public notice to consider a local law to amend chapter 48 of the Riverhead Town Code entitled Beaches and Recreational Areas. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
This resolution is so that everybody knows that you can't ride a motorized vehicle on any of our recreational trails throughout the town, and if you are caught doing so, you will get a $500 fine. Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes, in the public hearing.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
I hope they don't catch any of the Gabrielson family, yes, on there when during hunting season.
No,
Resolution
they've
adopted.
lectured.
Shouldn't be on
They
there
have,
anyway.
they have lectured the hunters, because we had one that was going in there. We told him, you go on there, you're getting kicked off the hunting, period. Forget that. Yeah, that's made clear with them.
Resolution 638.
If we catch them, they're out.
That's you, George.
Okay. 638
No,
is
it's
Wooten.
Wooten.
It's Wooten.
638 authorizes, I'd like to get confirmation. Authorizes the supervisor to execute a stipulation with Riverhead PBA. So moved.
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes, can I get a copy of this?
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
This is
Resolution
coming off the
adopted.
floor, right?
Resolution 639.
Pay bills first, yes. Can I get a motion to pay bills?
I make a motion, we pay the bills?
And seconded.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yeah, why not?
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted.
And can we move resolution 640 off the floor?
I'd like to take resolution 640 off the floor. So moved.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Dunleavy.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution 640 is taken off the floor. Now we'll just call.
John, can you move?
Resolution 640 extends public comment period until September 30th, 2014 for draft supplemental generic environmental impact statement for a comprehensive development plan for EPCAL reuse and revitalization plan amended to the town of Riverhead comprehensive master plan amended to the zoning map and code amended to the Calverton Urban Renewal Plan and subdivision of the Enterprise Park at Calverton, EPCAL. So moved.
I'll second.
Moved and seconded, vote please.
Giglio.
Yes.
Gabrielson.
Yes.
Wooten.
Yes.
Delmeeby.
Yes.
Walter.
Yes.
Resolution adopted.
Does anybody wish to be heard tonight? Not seeing anybody, can I get a motion to
Make a
adjourn?
motion, we adjourn the town board meeting, so move.
Seconded, all in favor? Aye. Opposed, abstention, motion
Don't
carries,
forget your
meeting adjourned.
shoelaces.
I don't think it's a joke.
Okay.
You're gonna be honest, you gotta vote
You're
honest.
gonna be honest with this budget now.
You did.
Huh?
But I'm going to, I'm going to open my guide.
This is all for